Live tonight from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the iRacing pre-race show as we get set for tonight's round 4 of the 2020 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Happy that you're always tuning in with us on a Tuesday night. We're alongside Tim Terry and Randy Chenneth. My name is Evan Pisoko, but also an extra welcome to all of you who may be tuning in for a first time. We know that it's difficult to kind of get out of a routine and to not have real life on-track action for these last few weeks and for the foreseeable future. So hopefully my racing action can tie everybody over. And Tim, just for clarification's sake, as we get set for our race here tonight, this series, the Coca-Cola iRacing Series, is all the professional iRacing drivers. These are not NASCAR Cup guys looking for a hobby. These are the pros at sim racing. Many of them representing actual NASCAR teams or teams owned by NASCAR drivers, some esports organizations. This is the top of the level in sim racing competition, and they're getting set to do battle from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway.
Yeah, getting ready to see a show here tonight, 38 strong, getting ready to go green flag racing. Excited to really see these guys hit this racetrack. It's our first short track of the season, Evan. We've seen some racing at Daytona and Fontana. Now we get down to Business Homestead. Miami was 2 weeks ago, and now we get down to the Bristol Motor Speedway as these drivers, it's early to talk points, but these drivers are trying to position themselves into a playoff run, and momentum could be huge here if you win at Bristol.
We have 250 laps on deck for this evening. Something tells me we're going to have some yellows as well sprinkled in there. So we're going to have a ton of time to talk about this Coca-Cola iRacing Series, what has happened so far this year if you're new to it. Of course, the outlook for the rest of the season as well. But it has been a whirlwind of the last 2 weeks here, Randy, on the iRacing service with so many different events, from IMSA racing last weekend to, of course, what you've seen with the NASCAR Pro Invitational iRacing Series. So many of those professional race car drivers in the real world hopping onto the iRacing platform to stay busy during this downtime and, this current period of social and physical distancing. And certainly hope that all of you tuning in at home are staying safe and doing well in this time. So we kind of want to talk with all of you tuning in. If you're watching us live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch, send in some questions. We want to talk to you about what you have thought about this sim racing in the last couple of weeks, and as well, maybe, Randy, answer some questions for those people who may be tuning into a Coke Series broadcast for the first time.
Yeah, this is something, of course, for our endurance race broadcasting, Evan, this is something we'll do from time to time. So everyone in the chat, if you're on Twitch, if you're on YouTube, wherever you might be, get active. We have people monitoring, going to be feeding us some questions. So feel free to ask, and one of us will field it. But you mentioned, of course, Evan, all of the racing we've had going on. It's been great to see sort of all the various organizations really kind of getting involved and trying to keep some, semblance of people's everyday and normal life running. NASCAR, of course, has been a big part of that. We've also seen the World of Outlaws, both in the with the sprint cars and the late models, get active. We had the big kind of World of Outlaws doubleheader with the iRacing, with the World of Outlaws North Engineering sprint cars, kind of headlining that at the end of the night with the regular esports championship, as well as the Morton Buildings Late Models Invitational that had Mike McKinney take the victory one. But it's been great to see all, from the top of the board of the super top level professional series like NASCAR all the way down. I've seen the California Lightning Sprint Series doing stuff, and it's great to see kind of a lot of the real guys get on track with the sim guys up and down the entire ladder of motorsport.
And while we're talking about you getting involved with us in the conversation, again, send your questions in. Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Our Twitter handles are up there as well. You can give us a shout on social media and feel free to ask away. In a lot of these events, Tim, it has been an unprecedented time in sports, in motorsports, but as well that is translated to the sim, because we've always said it. One of the coolest things about iRacing is that no other pro sport, esport can replicate what sim racing does. You can't get a basketball player on a controller or a hockey player doing this same thing. It's just not the same. But when you take Denny Hamlin, who won the Pro Invitational Series race at Homestead 2 weeks ago, and put him in a sim rig, he's doing the same thing he does in his FedEx Camry every week. That one in front of 903,000 people. This past Sunday, when you see a surprise trip to victory lane for Timmy Hill doing the same thing that he does in his Cup car on a weekend in front of 1.3 million viewers on Fox and FS1, there is no other sport sport that can do this type of esport like NASCAR can, specifically here on the iRacing service, and it has been a ton of fun.
Yeah, it has been. We saw that Timmy Hill with the boot scootin' boogie, as he called it, on William Byron to go to victory lane. And watching these drivers here over the last couple of weeks, they did a lot of practice. Actually had a question come up from one of our viewers, Just Jordan, asked us, how long do these drivers that are going to be racing here tonight practice? And a lot of the work that went into these setups and a lot of work that went into the preparation for the Bristol Motor Speedway began 2 weeks ago after the Homestead Miami Speedway. Obviously different preparation for Bristol than you would at Homestead, but a lot of these drivers, these 40 drivers that are a part of this Coca-Cola iRacing series, started practicing last week, just like the counterparts in the Pro Invitational iRacing Series. Some of those drivers, as soon as we finished at Texas, they hopped into sessions at Bristol Motor Speedway on the iRacing service and started practicing for Sunday. So lots of hours being put in by these drivers to tweak their setups. Obviously, with the Pro Invitational, there's a fixed setup. But with these drivers here tonight, open setup, they can tweak their race car, get out there, see how that car reacts on the racetrack, work with their teammates, do a little bit of telemetry. And what we have is what we have here tonight. So we'll throw them on the racetrack for 250 laps and see who's maybe the most prepared to get to the racetrack, throw in a little bit of luck and a little bit of preparation to get to the front of the field. And I think that's what we're going to see tonight.
And the questions are rolling in. Got a question from Eric Webler on Twitter asking you guys that if the NASCAR Pro Invitational Series, with that being so big, has it had an effect on this series and us? And as well, I think that if you're tuning in with us live on the chats right now, more than 5,000 people in YouTube alone. It was really exciting to see that last time that we were out at our race at the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, that we had 280,000 people tune in for that broadcast. Of course, that was the first week following no NASCAR on track action. We had been averaging about 180,000 views per race. So certainly with everybody looking for stuff to do, Randy, this series, when you get real NASCAR people onto the racetrack and somebody says, hey, what's iRacing? Maybe some of you tuning in as well are watching us here tonight for the first time. So I think the answer is yes. That Pro Invitational Series and its success with our partners at Fox has definitely really helped out this series. It could hopefully kind of bring all of the sim racing up to the bigger stage.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Everything that's been going on has definitely put us under a pretty fine microscope, and it's great to see everyone supporting it the way they have. It's we're unique in the sport of motorsports that we can kind of in some form or another keep going at almost a rate of normality. If the NBA, basketball couldn't do this, football couldn't do this. No one else could really do what we are able to do here on the sim. And it's great to see that all the support coming out from everybody, and it's not only just with this series, Evan, and I know you're feeling it as well. It's been a whirlwind sort of 3 weeks with everything kind of coming on board and people trying to get the ball rolling the way things are going, and it's a busy time for us, that's for sure.
And a good opportunity here as I get a question from Evan Snell on Twitter asking if we would like to see some pro drivers enter in the real-life races, in their respective disciplines. And it's an interesting point because also got a question from Skylar Brockmiller asking if Ty Majeski was racing, because that's one of the interesting things about this. We mentioned there are two different paths. What you're seeing on the weekends on Fox with the Pro Invitational Series are NASCAR drivers. Cup, Xfinity, Truck, Arco, everything in between. That's what they're racing in. But what this is the sim racers. There's some 110,000 people, Tim, on iRacing. These are the best 40. These are the only people that can get into this series. Now, that's not to say that it is not including some of those real-world drivers, because some of them have a lot of experience on the sim. The first ever race in this eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series was won by Dale Earnhardt Jr. in 2010. Timmy Hill had been in this series for the longest time. Somebody like a Ty Majeski could probably, if he could dedicate the time and it wasn't real-world racing, try to qualify into this as well. So there is a little bit of overlap here and there, but the guys here tonight are the 40 best sim racing drivers in the world, period, and no doubt about it.
And when you look at these drivers that are here, we talked about preparation. Obviously, there's preparation on both sides. I think Keegan Leahy kind of summed it up great on the iRacing member forums, where somebody had mentioned, hey, wouldn't it be cool to see the iRacing, Coca-Cola iRacing Series guys race against the drivers that are racing on Sunday within the sim? And he kind of said, well, the top 10, they've done some races, the top 10 have been Coca-Cola Series drivers. William Byron has been really quick, and we've seen guys like Denny Hamlin be really quick, but it might be a neat deal, but these drivers have a lot more laps, a lot more preparation on this racetrack. So it'd be interesting to see, but I'm kind of on the side, Evan, that these Coca-Cola iRacing Series drivers might end up sweeping the top, though. Guys like Timmy Hill and Garrett Smithley and the drivers that we've seen up front, you mentioned Dale Earnhardt Jr. as well, might have a little something to say about that. We might have to see that throwdown come up in the future, but I'd love to see it at a track like Bristol Motor Speedway, short racetrack, and maybe a little temper, some bent fenders, all that other fun stuff too. But we'll see what happens as we move forward. But excited to see some racing at Bristol Motor Speedway when it plays out, and excited to see Sunday's race play out too as well, because I know Timmy Hill is on the chip after last week's win, and I'm pretty sure he's got a target on his back. I saw somewhere in chat somebody asked if the win that Timmy Hill has counts towards the actual NASCAR Cup Series playoffs and what have you, and I'm pretty sure Carl Long would probably say yes, but I don't think it does.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to allow that. I think it'll be interesting if some of the drivers are keeping track amongst themselves in that Pro Invitational, who's going to end up as kind of the de facto Pro Invitational points winner. Again, if you're just tuning in with us, you haven't missed a race. It is still upcoming. We are hoping to get underway for round 4 of the 2020 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series as soon as we can. Just a small technical issue in the actual iRacing session, so they're making sure it is all squared away before we drop the virtual green flag and get underway here on the iRacing Sports Network. And got a couple more questions. And this was a fun one to take a look at over the weekend, Randy. Having people asking, Aaron Porto on Twitter asking to me, what's up with the different rigs? Why are some so expensive and why are some so cheap? You saw Denny Hamlin, who won that first Pro Invitational. He had about a $40,000 rig compared to Timmy Hill, who has the same wheel that I do, about $300, one computer screen, and a desk. That's it. The beautiful thing is, and in this series, is it's different because in our Coke Series, drivers can work on setups and try to get an advantage, and that's a big part. But over the weekend, what you saw, and with iRacing, we can do this, is in a virtual race, everybody has the same car. This team does not have an advantage over that team. For the Pro Invitational stuff over the weekend, all the cars had the very same setup, so the only thing it came down to is driver. Now, some drivers will go from 1 screen to 3 screens to help the peripherals. Maybe that helps them as well, to feel more comfortable in the car, but at the end of the day, it does not matter how small or big of a setup, how cheap or expensive as whatever you have. At the end of the day in iRacing, the people who rise to the top are the people that can wheel it, and that I think is what makes it so exciting.
Yeah, I mean, and that is definitely true. I mean, going down just a list of iRacing world champions that I can think of, Ray Alfalo was on a pretty basic setup for a number of years when he won his championships. It wasn't until recently a lot of the guys have really started to get sort of up-to-date equipment. Hugo Louis, who's one of our producers and works the cameras for these events, he's one of the behind-the-scenes guy. He won an iRacing world championship once upon a time in the old Grand Prix series, and he was on a very, very basic setup as well. I remember when he came to my house, I was just on a basic Thrustmaster and pedals, and he's like, wow, this setup is way better than what I have at home. So you don't need the super expensive stuff. Now, if you're the likes of a Kyle Busch or a Denny Hamlin, if you're kind of using this more to train, I'm sure there's definitely some validity to have a $40,000 rig to try to emulate everything you can do with the car, down to the movement of the car, feeling that physically rather than just, through the wheel. There's definitely some validity there. But if you're just, a regular person, want to try out some motorsport, want to try out some sim racing, few $100, you can have a wheel, few $100 more bucks, get a nice computer, and you can get yourself on the sim and find yourself side by side with Dale Earnhardt Jr. really quick.
And Dale Earnhardt Jr. obviously associated with the Junior Motorsports. The exciting thing that we mentioned off at the top is that, while these are not the real-life drivers, most of the teams here are owned by Cup Series teams or Cup Series drivers. It happened to be joined by Parker Kligerman on our pre-race show. He's the co-owner of Parker Kligerman Esports, or Burton Kligerman Esports, I should say. I know you'd like it to be your name at the top of the Parker. Your drivers have been off to a really good start so far this year, 3 races in. But you're not only a team owner, because with all of the off time, you've been behind the wheel a ton as well these last couple of weeks. So just kind of tell everybody who may not be familiar how you got involved in sim racing and how you find it as a very important tool, having been obviously behind the wheel of a lot of real race cars yourself.
Right, yeah. I started sim racing the same time I started real racing. So this was back in 2002. I started go-karting and actually found NR 2003 a little bit later. I was sort of on consoles first, and I switched to the computer side and got NR 2003 and F1 Challenge. And that has led me down the path of being a lifelong sim racer. It's been something that, I feel like throughout my racing career has allowed me to, gain skills I wouldn't be able to because I didn't have the chance to always be in a car because of, the financial realities of real racing. So sim racing was always something that I, one, enjoyed, and two, I felt like was helping me in the real racing world. And it's incredible. I was a part of iRacing sort of in the beta phase, and seeing it grow and where it is now has been absolutely awesome. And, Burton Kligerman Esports is part of sort of giving back to that, helping more people realize that this is something out there, something they can participate in, something that they can enjoy, whether they're a pro race car driver, an aspiring pro race car driver, or aspiring eNASCAR driver, or just someone who loves racing who wants to get more involved. So it's been really cool to see it be put in the limelight. I know it's, unfortunate circumstances that have brought the limelight to iRacing here with what's going on in the world, but it's definitely very cool to see so many eyes on it right now, and it's sort of getting this time in front of so many people.
And we're looking forward to getting this one underway. Parker, you mentioned anybody can kind of hop on iRacing, and it's different from, sticking to ball sports to be able to get involved. So iRacing's kind of that outlet. That's kind of what it is for me, to get onto the racetrack and have some fun. For the drivers that race in this Coca-Cola iRacing series, this is a big deal. These drivers are fighting for a $300,000 purse this year. As a co-team owner, just kind of describe to everybody the amount of work that the drivers they're going to see on track tonight put in to be the very best at their craft.
Yeah, so Logan and Ashton, they put in hours upon hours every day, testing, practicing, building setups, trying to refine those setups. It's no different than the real world. We're using data acquisition. You're looking at your times over a run and finding just minute little differences that can make a huge difference on the racetrack. So it's just, it's something that has gotten so competitive, and every year that seems like the competition level rises. And we've had to raise our game. And so at Burton Kligerman Esports, we just try to give Ashton and Logan all the tools possible to, find success on the racetrack, find success on social media, and growing their profiles and growing the amount of people that know that they're in the series and they're up front. And so that's sort of our job. But it's definitely, when people watch this tonight, if they watch those pro invitationals the last couple weeks, right, where it's us real drivers with varying skill levels in iRacing, or varying experience levels, I should say, in iRacing. They've been at times interesting to watch, and I think, what you see tonight is the best in the world. These are the top 40 drivers in the world on iRacing. If I've raced against them, I did some of those, all-star races we did on NASCAR America last year on NBCSN, and I got absolutely smoked. But I can obviously run top 5 in the Pro Invitational stuff. So I think it's just incredible, the level of talent in this series and how good these guys are. And so I just love watching. And I think, Dale Jr. and I always talk about where people don't quite realize how good these guys are until we really, get to tune in and just see what they do compared to what we do in the Pro Invitational series. And so hopefully people out there see that tonight and see a great race and see the talent level of these drivers, because it's just absolutely amazing.
And I think we do have virtual cars on track. So we're about to get underway here soon. Parker will let you go. If the delay goes on any longer, we might have to get you to hop on that keyboard in the background and do a pre-race concert. But thanks to the time, that is Parker Kligerman, co-owner of Burton Kligerman Esports, and now also joined on the pre-race show by Adam Alexander, NASCAR Race Hub host on FS1. Thank you so much for the time, and welcome to iRacing. I know that you're dipping your toes into the mix with some World of Outlaws stuff tomorrow night at FS1 as the iRacing pros are in control tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to get my feet wet tomorrow. It'll be my first experience when it comes to iRacing and the broadcasting side. But I've been watching the last couple of weeks with those pro invitational events that Parker was talking about, and you guys have made so many references to, and to see the reality of NASCAR Cup champions racing on iRacing, competing against one another, and competing against what really have been, I think, the unsung heroes of the first couple of weeks of these pro invitational events, of the Timmy Hills, the Garrett Smithleys, these drivers that race in NASCAR but maybe don't get the recognition in Gander Trucks, Xfinity, maybe at the Cup level, but have really been able to shine when it comes to iRacing. It's been fun to watch.
And obviously, the public feedback has been great. We mentioned over 900,000 people tuned in for the first one at FS1, 1.3 million this last Sunday with Fox at FS1 covering it. And, with no on-track stuff to talk about, this is a very good way for us to get some sense of normalcy. Nobody is trying to replace the real race cars with the virtual race cars. And iRacing's always been here. It was here before this. I promise you it'll be around after now with all the extra exposure as well. But for these drivers who love racing, to be able to hop into a race car, I know it's got to be to some extent therapeutic for them to get through this, to just get out there and have some fun with the same guys that to be door banging with either way.
Well, and you mentioned the unfortunate situation we're in the world, which has infused a lot of energy and excitement into iRacing with the events that have been on Fox and FS1. And I think about the trickle down effect of that. NASCAR Race Hub, our daily show on FS1 that covers NASCAR, has been really good about partnering with iRacing and showing the highlights of the various races over the course of the last year. But when you go to a circumstance like we're in right now, and you don't have actual on-track racing to talk about, the focus of our first race hub since we've been back that started last night was all about that race Sunday from the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. So I think, this has become new. And when you've got the biggest stars competing, fans are interested. And, you talked about the numbers. I mean, they've been outstanding, more than 1 million viewers Sunday from Texas. So I think it really puts an exclamation point on just how important this is. And I think if you go on social media and follow these drivers, you will understand how much fun they're having and how important it is for them to come out and have an opportunity to compete.
And of course, the way that this has all gone down is we're seeing the real-life drivers hop onto the sim, but in a series like this tonight, with this Coca-Cola iRacing series, these are drivers who, regardless if we would have had real car tracks, cars on track this weekend or not, they would have been here. I mean, these are the iRacing pros. So these drivers now get a really cool opportunity to work so hard to be the very, very best at what they do. And now all of a sudden, there's, an extra 100,000 or 200,000 eyes on them to kind of give them a little bit of payoff for all of the hard work that they've done to fight for what is essentially the top iRacing championship here as we get set to go racing at the virtual replica of Bristol Motor Speedway.
Well, I'm not sure these drivers in the last couple of years have been getting the credit they deserve. I think we really took it for granted. And I think what Parker touched on and put in perspective is how he stacks up against the drivers you will see racing tonight versus how he was able to stack up in those pro invitational events. He was running top 5 consistently Sunday at Texas against Cup superstars, and he has a hard time holding his own against drivers that do this on a regular basis and kind of make this their racing home. So I think that's an indication of how much talent is in these racing programs. And the other thing you guys have talked about, this has really been embraced by the NASCAR community, and so many Cup stars now owning teams in this series. I think kind of see this circle being completed. And now the foundation that's getting laid and the spotlight that's been put on iRacing because of what we've seen the last couple of weeks and we will see in the weeks to come. I think this is a platform that will only continue to grow. I think it was anyway, but I think now we even put more backing behind it. There's going to be a greater awareness, and the opportunities going forward are endless.
Well, I'll tell you what, we are about to get set to go racing tonight. So, Adam, very grateful for your time. Thanks for tuning in and chatting with us, and hopefully have an opportunity to catch up with you again soon. And gentlemen, we mentioned that we were getting set to get virtual race cars on track. They are. Qualifying has just rounded down to a close. So we are about set to go racing for round number 4 of this 2020 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Have that you've stuck with through the iRacing pre-race show here on the iRacing Esports Network. We're alongside of myself, Evan Pasoko. I'm joined by Tim Terry and Randy Chennett. And Tim, we're back at Bristol this year for another edition, this time a spring edition of high bank to high horsepower action.
And our first short track of the season, after being at Homestead, after being at Fontana Daytona to kick off the season, we finally get some short track racing. I'm a short track guy. Absolutely love this. Can't wait to see who comes out on top after 250 laps here at the High Bank Half Mile.
We were doing our best to get through some of those questions. I promise for all of those who tweeted them in, even though we may not have gotten to them on the broadcast, I'll try to get back to you later on after our coverage here. But Randy, this has been an exciting season so far. 3 races, 3 different winners representing 3 different teams at 3 different kinds of racetracks. So it has been wide open, way too early to pick or pin a favorite. I think everybody has got a real shot at this. Of course, the way this series works is we go racing for 16 weeks to determine the playoffs. But one thing that we have been doing in the broadcast booth is making some fantasy picks. We're deciding who we think is going to go to victory lane, and we get the points that driver earns. And as you can see, it has not been the best of starts for me and Tim. So since you are the early points leader in our Coke Series booth fantasy, we'll let you go do the honors first here from Bristol. Who do you see ending up in iRacing victory lane tonight?
I think it's going to be a driver I've picked already, and I think it's someone who's been consistent, and I think is due an oval win. I'm going to take the number 83 of Bobby Zalenski. He's not let me down earlier when I picked him for this. He starts in the mid-pack here today, 17th, but him and Keegan, who is one of the people he works with, were bad fast here last year and just caught bad timing on a yellow. Didn't really like their strategy last year, but I think they're going to be much more well-prepared this time out. Second go at Bristol. Bobby Zalenski, I think, will find his way in victory lane.
Well, that's the thing, Tim, as well, because we've only been to Bristol 3 times in the 10-year history of this series. There's not a huge sample size to go off of, but you're the stat man. Who do you pick for tonight?
You know what? I'm going to go off the stats a little bit. I like short track racing. I'm going to pick a guy that does some short track racing in real life, does some U.S. Legend Cars action, the Bojangles Summer Shootout. Let's go with Garrett Lowe in the number 21 car for the Wood Brothers Racing. Struggled a little bit on the practice times, but you have to put the speed and you have to put the luck into everything. I think he's going to grind his way up here for at least a top 10 finish and at least give me some points because Ray Alfala hasn't been able to the last couple weeks.
Well, I'll tell you what, we talk about the history of Bristol, the likes of Casey Kerwin last year, Thomas Hazard, Richard Challer. It's been a racetrack that drivers have been able to find their first wins at. So my pick for this evening is Nathan Lyon. He led the most laps last year with 118, was unable to put it into victory lane, looking for his first career win. That is my pick, the driver of the number 6 machine. I've got faith that Nathan Lyon's going to help me out tonight and dig me out of that early hole. Again, those are our picks from the last 2 weeks. It has Randy in front, and we'll take care of that soon. I think Nathan Lyon's got a good bit of speed coming into this one. But talking about Bristol again, Tim, of course, everybody tuning in, a sim race fan or a race fan, they know about Bristol. They know how it shakes out. But, for this race specifically, kind of what is the tale of the tape in this Coke Series?
I like these trends. All good things come in threes. We've had 3 different races here. We've had 3 different winners, Casey Kerwin, Thomas Hazard, and Richard Towler. All 3 of those drivers, what's in common? Well, they won their first race in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series here at Bristol. Could we see a 4th here this evening? Time will certainly tell. When you look down at this is the last great Coliseum. We have last great Gladiators. We've only had 3 drivers compete in all 3 races. Brad Davies from Junior Motorsports, Brian Schoenberg, who needs a really good run here, and of course, Ray Alfala. He's got the best finish of the 3, coming home with a 4th place finish in 2011. And March Madness, this is the last day of March. This is the 3rd time we've run this race in the month of March. Excited to see who comes out and who comes to victory lane here at Bristol.
We had to go with a 7-year hiatus before we saw it again on the calendar. Last year it was a fall race, but when we move back to the spring date, Randy, that means sunshine today from Bristol Motor Speedway.
Yeah, it does, and it's going to be much different weather conditions from what we saw last time out of the Bristol Motor Speedway. Under the lights, much warmer track conditions, 115 degrees Fahrenheit, mild winds. That's not going to be too much of an issue, but watch the tires here. We saw good tire life last year under the lights, but now the track much warmer with this dynamic track that we have here on the iRacing service. That's going to make these cars a little bit more slippy, and I think tire life is going to be the name of the game today, on top of track position, managing yellows.
Well, we are looking forward to getting to say let's go racing from Bristol, so let's crank the music, head trackside, and take a look at our iRacing starting grid as we get set to do battle for the last great Coliseum for round 4 of 2020. Pole position in this one belongs to Michael Conti. His Junior Motorsports Chevrolet will bring us to the green flag. He's accompanied by the 18 machine of Graham Bolin. You see Logan DeClamp and Dick Ottinger making up a power duo of row number 2. The 2 Junior Motorsports cars, Tim Terry top 6. As you can see, teammate Brad Davies in P5.
A great qualifying effort for Santiago Tires as well. Look at Keegan Leahy up here really quick. Ashton Crowder looking to get back to victory lane as well as we continue through the past the top 10.
Yeah, you have the likes of Shearburn, McCullum in here as we quickly scroll through Novak and Casey Kerwin. There's a couple of big names starting deep on row number 10 as we get into really the depths here. Ray Alfala on the outside of row 13 as well. And Garrett Lowe starting on the outside of row 15. Tim's pick going to have to work his way forward.
And you kind of get back here, you're in the mid-pack area. The likes of Cattell, Schoenberg, all the way back Overland to Debusa, not taking times and qualified. They'll be 39th and 40th position back on row number 20. This race, though, it doesn't matter if we give you the numbers here and there, Tim. It is going to come down to attrition, but we have yet to throw the green flag, which means we still have some strategy. What's today's race analysis?
Usually we talk about pit strategy, fuel, and tires. Yes, we're going to talk about fuel. It's 130 to 140 laps or so, but we're probably going to have a caution or two in between there, and that's probably going to dictate what we have for strategy. Pit road speed 35 miles an hour. Distance, it's a half mile. 250 laps, 125 miles. Casey Kerwin was the winner last year. And keep in mind, guys, we have a brand new pit road to the iRacing service. You're going to see a blue line around corners number 3 and 4. These drivers will enter pit road off turn 2. They will exit off of turn number 1. They have to come all the way around the Bristol Motor Speedway, and there's a blue line to detect that as our cars are getting ready to grid.
Last year, this race saw 5 yellows. If I'm a betting man, I'm going to go for the over here from Bristol Motor Speedway. But thank you so much for sticking with us through the iRacing pre-race show. Those technical glitches are out of the way. Cars are on track, and we're ready to drop the green flag for round number 4. Randy, final thoughts as we roll off of the pit lane.
Well, Tim just kind of mentioned it, Evan, that access road to get down towards pit road. We get green flag pit cycles. That's going to be so hectic with cars coming off there on the entry into turn 1 and coming in on the exit of turn 2. Look for some potential fireworks as drivers try to get on and off of pit road. And man, this is going to be a good one. 250 laps at Bristol, 125 miles. Who isn't excited about something like this?
The light's going to go out on top of the iRacing official pace truck this time by, which allows us to say that the road to $300,000 makes the stop in Thunder Valley as we are ready to go racing from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway for round 4 of the 2020 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. It is a front row duo of some of those NASCAR teams. Michael Conti representing Junior Motorsports in the WR1 Sim Chassis Chevy for Junior Motorsports at the inside. That's the number 8 car. At the outside for Joe Gibbs Racing, the number 18 Interstate Batteries Camry of Graham Boland. Half of that, though, you're spending a Tuesday night with us, sim fans and race fans alike. The pace car going to dive down to the safety of the pit lane this time through, and a former series champion in Michael Conti going to bring us to the action as we say, let's go racing from Bristol. Round 4 is underway.
Going to see Graham Boland tuck into line of position number 2 behind Michael Conti. Top 3 are single file, side by side in behind. Keep an eye on Nick Ottinger and Brad Davies. They have many laps around this racetrack as they contend side by side, and they might have some company.
Yeah, Ottinger caught the fence down in turn number 3, so it ended up stacking him up about 3 wide mid-pack there. You can see Davies ends up in front, and Ottinger is actually going to be okay, so we single file things until you get back to the battle between Keegan Leahy and Kane Cook, 7th and 8th spotted. You can already see the outside in that fight. The better place to be as the 6 car is up and into the outside wall. Nathan Lyon went for a ride. We're 3 wide on the back straightaway at Bristol, but somehow, so far, so good.
Yeah, I'm sure you didn't like seeing the 6 get up there, Evan. Your pick getting in the wall that early. I see nearly 3 wide behind Nathan Lyon right now. Number of cars getting up in the outside wall of 27 of Corey Vincent. A little bit of a half spin, and we got big problems off of turn 2. We stay green, but it is like a parking lot down the back straightaway. The 27 of Corey Vincent, huge damage on that race car. As big drama here in the first 5 laps in the mid-pack as your leaders continue to break away.
Yeah, there was a jack up with Kerwin and Diaz. Vincent it up in the middle, and you saw that look at him. He lost the entire front clip of that race car, so not what he wanted out of the gate in this one. But again, nobody actually went all the way around, so no caution flag, and we stay green. How's that for an opening 5 laps from Bristol? No changes, 1, 2, and 3. It is still Conti, Boland, and Clampett. As you see these drivers, Tim, taking the high side around Bristol.
And for the most part up here in front, single file as you run on board with Kane Cook. Great qualifying effort for the double nickel, running inside the top 10 right now, chasing down that 53 of Ryan Lusa right ahead of him. And Graham Boland, you look at that onboard shot. That's a great onboard shot. You saw those top 2 Graham Boland maybe digging a little bit deeper to the inside than Michael Conti is. Great shot right there as well. Conti is rimrodding this racetrack right up to the outside wall, and Graham Boland trying to get to the inside and maybe try to get a little more rubber down to that inside line. Great side-by-side racing here. There's Alex McCollum on the outside.
Yeah, and here's that battle as well with that 6 machine and Nathan Lyon, who got up and into the outside wall. So McCollum is the 54 car up top for G2 Esports. He's able to make that move around. And then you got Jimmy Mullis, the Coke Energy car for Richmond Raceway Esports. He'll also go around on the outside to make that pass. So curious if that damage is affecting the 6 car Nathan Lyon. I talked about all of those laps he led last year, representing the Castro Ford Mustang this time around for Roush Fenway. And maybe a little bit of rock luck off from the get-go. Here's an onboard shot, though, with Zach Novak, your defending series champion. His Sunoco Toyota side by side with Bobby Zelensky for 15th.
Yeah, a bunch of our picks kind of grouped together back here. Nathan Lyon and Bobby Zelensky just ahead of Zach Novak. Zach still on the bottom, trying to make that bottom line work on the 83, but it's hard to make moves down there on the bottom side. But maybe as the tires go away, that's where you want to be. Bobby still has speed, and Zach Novak's going to have to get back in the line here. As I think maybe Michael Guest had a big wiggle.
You're watching the pros of iRacing to go at it right now. They are able to survive those treacherous opening laps, and all 40 drivers who took the virtual green flag are still on it, still on the lead lap, in fact. But you can see your top 2 drivers pulling away just a little bit. Boland, though, interesting. Tim, you mentioned him trying to get to the inside that last time. He's peeking off to the bottom. Here's an onboard shot with Ray Alfala back in the pack, currently running, at about 16th or so position on track right now. And you can see some cars a little bit higher than others, but nobody really running around on the bottom. Now you see Boland, he's about a half a lane lower than Conti is in the corners, and I'm curious if the 18's going to stick with that, as they appear now to be about even through 1 and 2.
What we saw with Ray Alfala and Zach Novak, though, stone cold around this racetrack right now, not letting anything get to them. We're usually seeing these drivers sawing on the wheel, and we're not really seeing a whole lot of that, at least early in this race. These drivers content to ride as Casey Kerwin in that number 23 trying to hold off a pack of cars here. Dylan Duval in the 41 car taking a peek to the inside in that peak forward, and here comes the 47 taking a peek to the inside as the top 2 have broken away. Hard to believe Graham Boland is a rookie in this series, but doing a great job up here in position number 2.
Yeah, he is. He has done a great job since joining this series. One of just 5 true rookies, along with McCollum, who we've already mentioned, who's battling in and around the front of the field, along as well with Bob Bryant, Colin Keister, and Santiago Tira as the 5 new drivers to get into this series. And, maybe for those who tuned in and first time watching the Coke Series broadcast, Randy, there's no contracts. You don't get guaranteed a 3-year stint with the team here. If you do not finish top 20 in these points, you get booted down, basically relegated to a qualifier series where there's 20 drivers from the top iRacing level below this who try to take your spots away. So that's how 5 of the 40 cars in the series this year never made it to this level. There's always a revolving door. You have to perform, and Graham Boland is having a hell of an opening year.
Well, that's a bit of a half-truth, Evan. Most of these drivers do have contracts with the teams and organizations, but you're right in the sense that there's no guaranteed entry in this series next year. You have to qualify in either in your points performance in this season, or if you don't do it that way, through the qualifying championship that happens every single winter. So, teams can sign multi-year deals, but there is the risk if your driver doesn't perform that they may not be in this championship next year. Now, I do know that some teams have kind of expanded beyond this championship. I think of Richmond Raceway Esports. I know they've kind of expanded out to a development program, and they've contracted some drivers that aren't even in this championship. So that is something many are doing. Is here comes Graham Boland. You mentioned his strong performance, and he is there poking his nose underneath the number 8 Chevrolet of Michael Conti.
And it's fantastic to see a track like Richmond get involved in this series. So cool to see them, as well as the NASCAR teams, as well as the teams that are just owned by drivers like Parker Kligerman, co-owner with Jeff Burton, who we talked earlier. Him and Jeff got together last year to get this team together. So many different ways that drivers and real-life teams have gotten involved in it. Here's another unique one. Mode Motorsports on board with Phil Diaz. He's about to get lapped. He's currently running back in 39th position. He's the last car on the lead lap. A trademark thing at Bristol is lap traffic. And while Michael Conti and Graham Boland fighting for the race lead, they're going to start to hit that lap traffic in about 3 laps or so.
Yeah, Graham Boland's going to have to try to manage this. I know he wants to lead this race, but he also needs to get past Phil Diaz. And when they catch the back of the field, Steve Sheehan, Jarl T, and Chris Overland not too far away from being lapped either, as the 75 of Phil Diaz just directly ahead of your leader, and he's been into something, a little bit of damage to the front and back end of that Mode Motorsports number 75. Your top two will work to the inside, and Evan, that's not the preferred groove that we have seen here, so the leaders going down to the inside, letting the lap traffic go to the outside, but status quo as you ride on board with Graham Boland as he wheels it down into corner number 3, keeping an eye on Michael Conti up in front of him. They'll come by this time and complete 29 laps.
Yeah, that's basically the exact view that Boland sees from his sim rig at home. That's kind of the virtual visor cam there on board with him as he's able to get through that traffic and not allow Conti to get that far away. Now it's a look off of the back of the 8 machine back to Boland, who in second position. I mean, these top two are pulling away from everybody else. They're more than a second ahead of Logan Clamp. You can see the damaged Mode Motorsports car off of that shot, and then Clampett in third. Clampett kind of in his own fight with Davies, but here we go for the race lead. Boland peeking down at the bottom. Unable to get a run out of 4, though. He'll tuck in line, reset, and try again.
It just seems like that bottom line, you can't get the run up off the corner. Right now, you're basically going to have to run the slider line, I think. Almost go back to about the early thousands when they put dirt on this place and they ran some wing sprint cars around here. You're going to have to get a big run off the corner and really send it up the inside, I think. But here comes Graham. He set this up nicely off of turn number 2. Down the back straightaway, just can't quite get close enough to really send it. But that number 18 Interstate Batteries Toyota Camry is really, really good right now. He's definitely quicker than Conti. It's just all about pressuring him into a mistake and potentially even taking advantage with the traffic. He's going to have the number 1 of Steve Sheehan up next, who's currently side by side with Brian Schoenberg. So lap traffic about to get super busy.
It is, and the longer we get into this run, it's really not going to get any better. You're stuck in the thick of things as this motor races out. Battle for the lead on the left, that fight for P6 on the back, right-hand side of your screen, and it is really just a single file line. Again, that side-by-side is still with that lapped car, but now you're seeing in front of the race leaders. How about some more side-by-side? Lap traffic, a battle for 37th and 38th between Brian Schoenberg and Corey. Actually, no, and the one machine of Steve Sheehan, I should say, is going to block the race leaders. Conti's going to pull up at the back of the one machine. He's stuck there. Boland sticks a nose down, and Michael Conti might be boxed in here. Could Boland use the traffic as a pick? We're fighting for the race lead.
And now Steve Sheehan goes to the inside on the exit of the corner, but we saw this with Phil Diaz going to the outside where the leaders had been running. Schoenberg and Sheehan doing the same thing, and now holding up the lead pack just a little bit. Graham Boland to the inside, trying to take that lead away. Michael Conti trying to be as patient as he can. We've seen that out of the driver, the number 8 before, but he might have to use the bumper a little bit here. He's right on board with Michael Conti. Look at that laser focus as he moves to the inside of the 1. Almost a little bit of contact down to the 3.
These guys are close quarters racing. Michael Conti, the 2014 series champion of this eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, and really had to work hard. And it was funny, we went on board with Ray Alfala, who's the 4-time champion of this. It looked pretty calm, but as you see Boland now trying to get to the outside of Conti, Randy, it looks like Michael Conti's laser focused in. I didn't see him blink once on that shot as Boland gets a nose to the high side. He'll make a run down into 3, and I think he's got Conti on the back foot.
Right there, that's why you saw Conti let himself get boxed in as Boland to the race lead now in towards turn 1. Conti, I just do not think likes the bottom. You saw when he first got to the number 1 car, he didn't try to dive up the inside, and I was a little confused as to why, because he was just only guaranteeing he gets trapped behind lap traffic. But I think the bottom groove right now, Evan, is so bad, or at least the 8 is so bad down there, that he knew he wouldn't be able to hold off the 18 of Graham Boland. And you see Conti, he tried the bottom groove, and Graham Boland immediately pounced. We have a new race leader because of it, as the likes of Brad Davies and Logan Clampett, they continue to work their way in towards the lap traffic. Because look at Brad Davies, Junior Motorsports having a great day, currently running 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah, they're doing a great job, but I'd like to see Conti stay up front. But once Boland got to the outside, don't think he stood much of a chance of being able to get back into that thing. And you can see the funny going on the right-hand side of your screen. How about 3 wide in the center of the corner at Bristol? That was the 10 of Justin Bolton for Stuart Haas Esports through the middle. He's got the 36 machine of Chris Shearbird to his inside. They were the ones that were fighting side by side in that battle. Of course, Shearbird representing Letarte Esports, the team owned by Steve Letarte with teammate Santiago Tires. So these guys mid-pack, doesn't matter if it's for the race lead or right now for 18th position. Every spot at Bristol matters, and these drivers are up and on it. Caution, though, at lap number 46. First yellow of the night, and there is a couple of cars on the back straightaway. Malik Ray, I think the first
Bolin
one
got
in the
into it in a
51.
secondary incident. The 18 of Graham Bolin just got a piece of that after the wreck happened.
That's your leader. So we'll get a second look at this one. It was contact between Malik Ray and Eric Smith, but we talked about the lapped cars being a factor. Graham Bolin, your race leader, look at the damage. He was absolutely nowhere near the wreck when it happened, but when he came on the scene, the racetrack was blocked, Tim Terry, and he could not avoid it.
Yeah, we're going to have to get an onboard look with Graham Bolin through this because that track was blocked. Eric Smith was on the outside and a couple of cars to the inside. He found the 16 car, Chris Overland, and that's all it really takes is these drivers, I'm sure this time will come down pit road on their first caution here nearing the 50 lap mark, but there's really nowhere to go. There was traffic everywhere, and tough break for Graham Bolin, got a little bit of damage to the front end. The good news is here, it's short track racing, might not need the aerodynamics a ton, but you might need to clean that off just to make sure that car doesn't overheat. And here they come, down onto pit road.
Yeah, it's our first look at the new way pit lane works here on iRacing. You used to be able to just have to go down to the pit lane that correlated with your stall if it was on the front straightaway or the back straightaway. Now, instead, you've got to go all the way around. So see these cars up front? They aren't stopping there because that's the back straightaway pit road. So that's 21st position through 40th. So those back cars are going to be pitting, but your race leaders had to roll through pit lane there. They now stay below that blue line that Tim Terry mentioned a little bit earlier. And now that they head into the box, Randy, probably looking all for 4 tires.
Yeah, you're right. Going to be 4 tires and fuel for everybody, and probably some repairs for the 18 of Graham Bolin. That was a hard hit he had with Eric J. Smith when they had that little moment, and you'll see it on the replay. I think Graham is going to be pretty frustrated with Eric over this one. Eric kind of broke the one cardinal rule, Evan, that any car in an incident or anyone who's lapped traffic breaks, and that's not holding his line. Didn't hold the brakes after the incident, and that's exactly why the 18 got caught up in that. Graham didn't hit Eric, but he made Graham have to go defensive.
And all of the race leaders get off of the pit lane. Bolin sits in the pit stall for repairs. Let's take now some second looks at the incident here. And we'll kind of start with all it get kicked off because, again, Bolin was just a secondary party. This is where it started. The 9 of Eric J. Smith, the Jim Beaver Esports entry, up against the 51 of Malik Ray for Joe Gibbs Racing, side by side. And Malik Ray just got up and into him a little bit. A couple of cars involved. I see the Wood Brothers 16 machine, Casey Kerwin from Denny Hamlin Racing. But right there, that's the Interstate Batteries leader. Look out. I think it was when Smith pulled down the racetrack, Tim. He went low to avoid him, had to keep going down, and eventually found a roadblock. Check out the onboard shot. This will tell you.
Yeah, we'll take a look at this. That high side is blocked, and I think you're right. He goes to the inside thinking that line's going to be there. He sees that 9 car roll down the racetrack, and he's got nowhere to go but into Chris Overland. A tough break for Graham Bolin, but hopefully gets that car a little bit repaired, a little bit massaged, and back down onto the racetrack as the field begins to double up. And there's another look at it, and Overland begins to roll. He sees what's coming. There's no way for that 9 car to really avoid it. It's just it's a tough break overall. Michael Conti gets shuffled back to 5th through all this as we're getting ready to go back to green.
And through that cycle of pit stops, it is a whole new running order. Brad Davies, he's going to move his car up to the top spot. The True Timber Chevy now leading. He is accompanied by the 99 of Logan Clampett. So Junior Motorsports and Burton Kligerman Esports inside and outside on the front row. Nick Ottinger, Keegan Leahy, Michael Conti, the rest of your top 5. Pace car down at end, though. 52 laps down at 250. Green flag flies. We're back underway. And if those first 5 laps are like the next 5, hold on tight. Restart at Bristol.
Let's see, down the back and in towards 3 and 4 this time. 88 of Brad Davies able to break away. So did the 99 of Logan Clampett. Nick Ottinger going to be the first one under attack here, nearly 3 wide off of turn 4 with himself, Kane Cook, and Michael Conti. And they might size it up 3 wide, this time off of 2. The 8 of Conti wants the inside line. Maybe made some adjustments to that Camaro with the pit stop. It looks better on the bottom as Mullis goes around.
The 46 spins onto the apron. He locks it up, hangs on. Caution flag. It does fly at lap number 54. I thought that maybe, Tim, we were going to get away with that one, but unfortunately the Coca-Cola Energy Toyota spins all the way through, and there was no contact in that one. It was just tough for those cars on the bottom, trying to get as high as they could to pinch those cars up top. Jimmy was side by side with Santiago Tires, and the car just broke loose. He did the right thing, though, locked it up to save it. That 77 car behind him of Ashton Crowder did a real good job of checking up to avoid him, and we'll get a second look in just a moment. It was just the 46, nobody else, just a single car spin that'll slow us right back down.
And a good thing to lock it down and not bring it back up into traffic, because that could have been a multi-car incident. But Jimmy Mullis in that Coca-Cola Energy number 46 is going to have to regroup from the back of the field, and he's going to have to deal with traffic for a little while now, because he scored back in P at 35 as we take a look at the replay as to what happened. And Evan, as you mentioned, all by his lonesome on the inside, battling with Santiago Tires, and just goes around. We saw that inside line was not necessarily the preferred groove here yet, but a couple laps after a restart, maybe some cold tires, and Jimmy Mullis is going to have to dig from the back.
Yeah, there's the onboard shot, and you can see him with the wheel all the way back to the right and lock it up. And I thought that, again, maybe because he was down there on the dark stuff and actually off of the surface, that we were going to be okay with it. But the caution flag, it did come down automatically from the tower. Car spins, iRacing, the software itself will trigger the caution flag. So that slows us down right now, pacing at lap number 57. So a bit of a whirlwind to get this race underway so far. Light's going to stay on top of the pace cars, so we're not going to resume quite yet. But to be honest, I think so far so good, Randy. So, 1/5 of the way through this Bristol 250, and we've seen a lot of good stuff. I think a lot more 3 wide than I would have been expecting this early on. But I think that we've seen a lot of great action, and we'll have to see if the likes of, Michael Conti, who's kind of trickled down to P6 after pitting there, could he get back up to the race lead? And as well, if that damage to Bram Bolin is going to take him completely out of this race, because, guys, he's back down pit road this time all on his own for damage repairs only in the 18 Toyota. So that car is obviously hurting. There are no quick repairs in this eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, unlike what you see on the weekends with the Pro Invitational. So if a race car gets beat up, you've got to sit down there and fix it, and I think Graham Bolin's going to lose the lead lap here.
Yeah, he's going to sit down there for a while. The pace truck has gone around, and he's not going to be coming out. He's going to be merging up into the field, but he's down a lap here. So Graham Bolin, that Joe Gibbs Racing Interstate Batteries Toyota is not looking. It's been a kind of a quick 60 laps, hasn't it? It's always a thing when you come to Bristol, how quickly the laps tick off. We're only about 20 minutes into this race, and normally you'd probably be talking about maybe 20, 30 laps into this thing at that point. Now we're nearly pushing 60. So when we eventually get some green flag runs, which I think we will, I don't think we'll stack up a bunch of cautions back to back. These guys will eventually calm it down. The laps are going to tick off mighty fast.
Yeah, it's funny because we look at the race distances for the calendar. This is the longest race lap-wise of 250 laps on the season. But of course, Tim, at 125 miles, it is the shortest one in actuality. So if these Bristol races open up and go green, I mean, these things kind of fly by.
We could see that. We saw the cleanest Bristol race on record last year at 1 hour and 17 minutes with 5 yellow flags. So it could click off in a hurry. But speaking about a hurry, we're getting ready to go back to green with Brad Davies and Logan Clampett on the front row. Let's see that pace truck dip off here this time.
These cars get it off and away as track temps trickle down to 107 degrees right now as the iRacing dynamic track and weather work hand in hand. So maybe a little bit more grip out there for Brad Davies, who takes the green flag, putting 60 laps behind us. And he's got a good jump off at turns 1 and 2. Clampett clear for P2. And it is Keegan Leahy to third. So we'll fight there on the back. Nick Ottinger, P25, the one under fire. Looks like he'll be okay at turn 4.
Well, he's number 25, not P25, but he's looking good. Top 4 get single file, first side by side. Going to be Michael Conti in the 55 of pink. Look, a little bit of a scrape of the wall from the 8th, but that's going to be no harm, no foul overall. As everyone, you see the entire field on that shot side by side outside of your top 6, 7 cars.
They are moving around the racetrack here. They're still 120, 115 miles an hour. Center of the corner, you can see the sparks coming off of Brad Davies as he grazed the fence that time at 2. You're on board with Logan Clampett, who right now rides in second position. And much like we saw in the drop of the first green flag, Tim Terry, your top 6 or 7 or so have single filed out, but that is not the case mid-pack. Everybody jockeying for position. This part of the racetrack tighter, I think, than they were for the restart. As you can see, the 90 machine is Zach Novak back on the inside. Also, that 6th and 8th and Lion stuck down low. Eventually, all of those cars are going to want to find a spot up top because that is the preferred way around.
These last 5 laps or so since the restart, Ryan Lusa has been bound and determined to make that inside line work. He's trying to make that move on Christian Chalner in the 37. Chalner up the racetrack, going to allow Ryan Lusa to get to the outside, and now Zach Novak takes a peek to the inside and tries to pick up one more position. The inside line hasn't been the line that's been moving, but we just saw with Ryan Lusa, if you're determined, you get some rubber down there, you can make that spot work. Christian Chalner hanging on the outside, and there's a look at Ryan Lusa, a little bit of a lean as he goes in to the corner here, that high bank corner at Bristol Motor Speedway, but again, laser focused, ready to go for this Coca-Cola eNASCAR iRacing Series.
And of course, what you're seeing here is his webcam's actually mirrored, so it looks like he's turning to the right, going into the corner. Of course, he's going left through Bristol, and it's cool to see all the drivers in their homes and how their different setups play out. That's a live look at him. He won 2 weeks ago at Homestead for Williams Esports, took home checkered flag number 3 on the year. Our other 2 winners have been Ashton Crowder for Burton Kligerman and Keegan Leahy for Denny Hamlin Racing. So Lusa no stranger to success, though, in this series as he tries to continue to work up the field. I feel like a move may be coming up top. Oh, there's a spinner at a 2, the 10 car. I think he caught it. Justin Bolton got way sideways after he got a nudge from Colin Keister, and they're going to be okay. But man, oh man, what a close call.
Yeah, you're right. That was big problems there for Justin Bolton coming off the corner. Nearly a pile up there in front of the field, but just able to hold on to that thing, and he has the 17 to thank for it. Just Colin Keister just getting into the left front as he was going around actually managed is what allowed him to keep that car moving forward. It means big damage to the left front, but we'll stay green for it. So thank you to the 17 for that one.
Yeah, the assist on the nudge and the assist on the save is actually what keeps the ball onto the racetrack. I think that was another one of those pucker moments is mid-pack there. I mean, we just saw it out of the corner of the screen. I thought for certain I was going to look over and see a bunch of wrecked race cars. Instead, you drop a couple of spots here and there, but all in all, certainly could have been a lot worse, and we avoid another near incident. And that's kind of how it could break out here at Bristol. It doesn't necessarily have to be too wide, Tim, 4-5 rows deep. It can kind of come out of nowhere as we've got battles throughout the track. Let's take a second look, though, at this incident coming off of turn number 2 and how it nearly happened. Top of your screen there is the replay. You'll see the 10 cars slide up in line. Keister goes for the cross and nudge to the quarter panel, and he kind of righted himself on that same 17 machine. Kudos as well to the drivers behind for backing it off and allowing them to figure it out.
I think Bolton only lost maybe 1 position through all of that. He was running behind his teammate Dylan Duval, and there's only 1 car in between Duval and Bolton right now, and that is Chris Shearburn in the 36 car. So good on Bolton to keep that straight. Good on the 17 of Colin Keister to keep that one straight as well, keeping us on the green flag. There is a look back from the 32 of Keegan Leahy running in position number 2. Had a quick swap for position number 4. Michael Conti has moved up into that 4th place position, and you see him working on that outside line, trying to get up to Logan Clampett and battle it out for what will be the 3rd place position. Nick Ottinger back to 5th, and then around 10th place or so, Evan. I think that's our first side-by-side battle act there.
And you can see Clampett wants to make it his battle for second one, but unable to do so far as that battle sees the 77 of Ashton Crowder side by side with Michael Guest. So it is the Beneath Chevrolet up on the outside line, driving for Team Dillon Esports. Bottom line, the 77 of Crowder, the Burton Kligerman car. This is a fight on track for 11th and 12th spot. And Michael Guest is going to win out because he's got the top side. The real question was, could the 77 find a hole in line? He wants to continue this fight, but if he can't win out here, he's got Lyon, he's got Duval lined up on the top. It is going to be a long road to the outside line for the 77 as he's kind of stuck down there.
Yeah, it definitely is. As you see, he's still trying to make it work. You just don't have the speed off the bottom. And look at the run the 6 and the 41 are able to get coming off of turn 4. I think we're about 20 laps too early to make the bottom work, Evan. Maybe you could get it stuck down there, but we've not seen it work the way we saw in the race last year. Last year, we kind of saw the bottom line come in at some point. We've not seen that even with the, 40-lap run we kicked this race off with. So maybe we got to get a bit deeper, or maybe with the warmer track conditions, 117-degree track temp right now, maybe the bottom line just is not where you want to be today.
Yeah, we've seen that pretty much from the get-go, that you want to get up and up and up. And even when you're single file, these drivers still opting to go to the outside. It's not a defensive move. That's just a better place to be. Fight for second, though, continuing on is Leahy pulling a little bit of distance now atop second place runner Clampett. Michael Conti's still there. The damage number 9 you see up top is Eric J. Smith, the big green egg entry, who got torn up in that last incident, actually 2 yellows ago, the big melee that happened on the back straightaway. But guys, Brad Davies had been pulling away a little bit. I thought the 88 machine was getting some clean racetrack as he now works around traffic on the bottom. So there's lap cars high, there's lap cars low, but Brad Davies only about 3/10 up. I think the rest of these drivers, led by Leahy in second, doing a very good job of keeping the race leader honest.
Yeah, Keegan Leahy trying to get to that leader, but right now we're still early in this race. 87 laps going to be completed this time by Keegan Leahy, and the rest of the field have plenty of time to get up to Brad Davies. One driver that I've kind of seen on the move and trying to keep with that trend is we have a caution flag on the speedway.
Caution flag flies once more. We'll try to find the cause of that one. There's a lot of race cars slowed down in turns 1 and 2, and I see the 9 machine slow on the apron, but I'm curious if he was just trying to get out of the way after the fact, or if that's actually where it was. And it was with Smith, the 9 machine. Not a good night for Eric Smith, and looks like it may have been in contact with he and the 4 of Santiago Tires, the driver in the track pass entry, and it was actually a little bit of de facto 3 wide. We'll get a second look at this in just a moment once we can roll that one, but it was a little bit of 3 wide. That wasn't really 3 wide, and we talked about lapped cars playing a factor. That's kind of what happened in here, as we'll see in a moment, Randy.
Yeah, I don't really like this from the car behind of Michael Guest. He kind of tried to form it up 3 wide, like he said, coming off the corner. And this early in the race, I don't think that's something you should be doing. He's trying to force it there on what he knows is a heavily damaged car that's struggling. It's very likely that you push out to the outside wall. But now let's see what's going to happen here with pit stops. We saw the leaders last time, Evan, down pit road. We saw Michael Conti lose a bunch of spots, get dropped back to 4th, 5th. Let's see if the 88 of Brad Davies on the long trip around the pit road here at Bristol Motor Speedway can maybe execute a bit better.
And again, race leaders not stopping here because that's the back stretch. They do have to go all the way around to turns 1 and 2 under the new pit road procedures for iRacing. Used to be just split back half, front half, and it would disadvantage the back straightaway guys just a little bit. So now in the interest of competition, everybody's got to make the long trip by. We saw a change for the race lead the last time that we were down to the pit lane for mass pit stop. So let's see if Davies can maintain. Right sides up on his car is, you can see some of the likes of Bolin up top still deciding not to pit this time, as he probably wants a lap back, but the car's onto the pit lane. Right sides, left sides, they're going to go for 4. We get set for race off of the pit lane. Not quite a challenge. Davies wins out. Tim, let's take a second look now at the incident.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at what brought out our caution flag here, and we'll ride on board with Dylan Duvall from the outside first, and a little bit of a check up there, and then you see right up into the traffic. The 41 of Duvall gets collected in it. Ray Alfala gets a piece as well as Nathan Lyon. And Evan, didn't you pick the number 6 car tonight?
I think the picks are now counting as the commentator's curses. Here's that onboard shot with Duvall, and you can see Guest just trying to stick a nose there as they were lapping the cars. It just did not fit, and Smith get involved in another incident, taking out my pick of Nathan Lyon. And to be fair, Randy, I know you've got the early points lead, but this luck is going to come around to you at some point, because it's not like I'm picking bad race car drivers. My picks are doing good. They're just getting caught up in everybody else's messes.
It's not luck, baby. It's all skill.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I know how to pick them better than anyone else. Maybe I'm the one who should. I know we've had some bookmakers come online, so if anyone needs some advice on that for lines for every week, give me a call. I'm more than willing to help out. But yeah, you're right. It's kind of a weird little incident there with Garrett kind of trying to force it 3 wide. But regardless, that's sort of the 4th caution we've had today. As lights are going to go out, we're going to get ready to go back to racing. I'm really impressed with the 88 of Brad Davies here, Evan. Seems like it's been a couple years that Brad's kind of reinvigorated himself. He's been running well. We'll see him in the top 5, top 10, every week or every other week. And I've thought for a while it may be only a matter of time if Brad Davies could maybe pull off a win. And what a place it would be if he could get it done here at Thunder Valley. The 88 looks really strong, holding off the likes of Keegan Leahy and Conti, who looked so good in the opening salvo of laps.
Davies, a 6-time race winner in this series, all those wins coming in 2010 and 2011. Pace car off it in, though. Let's see what the True Timber Chevy's got as he puts the right foot down, and we go green once more from Bristol. Once again, Leahy, second position outside the front row, maintains, and Michael Conti slides bottom to top. So Junior Motorsports first and third, as look at Nick Ottinger trying to get in line, but Kane Cook not giving him anything. 55 car forcing to the outside, and there's a lot of cars slowed down in turn 4. They're way checked up back there. You can see damage on Mullis in the 14 machine as well of Brandon Cattell, and now the caution flag flies.
And now the caution flag will come out after these drivers. It almost seemed like they knew what was going to happen as Colin Keister gets it refired again. Those guys that were battling for that 5th place position, Evan, it kind of felt like they knew the caution flag was coming, so they put the wood to it. Kane Cook is going to take position number 5 off of that exchange. As the 17 having a tough night here as he rejoins the back of the pack.
Yeah, the actual caution comes out for Keister, who pushed up a little bit into Bob Bryant, the number 42 Credit 1 entry, I believe, that represents Kyle Larson Esports, along with his teammate Steve Sheehan that we talked about a little bit earlier. It looked like Keister just pushing up and getting into the 42 and maybe got loose, stepped it up the hill. But the kind of chaos from earlier is not even where the yellow flag comes from. That was an incident with Brandon Cattell in the 14 machine, who got sideways. Very similar to how we saw Mullis do the same thing to Randy on his own in turn 3, got loose, and unfortunately he snapped up the hill and nailed Mullis. That was all the chaos at a 4, but again, because none of those cars actually spun, there was no yellow, and the delayed yellow was for a separate incident. Here's our second looks.
Yo, take a look at it right now. Looks like we're looking at the deuce right there in the center of your screen. Actually, it's the 17 and Colin Keith we're focused on. There's an incident there. That's an entirely separate mistake there from the 17. I think that's the incident that actually brought out the yellow, but you're right. It was the 14 of Brandon Cattell, and here this is kind of the initial incident. You can see into turn 3, he just loses it. That car just steps out from underneath him and snaps up trying to save it into Jimmy Mullis, but you know, like you said, no one goes around, so that doesn't bring out a yellow. It's that second incident with the 17. 2 entirely unrelated incidents, really, but these guys need to take a deep breath, Evan. We're starting to get cautions, breeding cautions thing going here. Everyone needs to take a breath, get some green flag running here, if you're going to lose a spot, maybe lose it now when you got, 150 still to go.
And I know that Randy is liking to brag about maybe being the bookmaker for this, Tim, but I'll be happy with the statement I made earlier in saying that if the over-under on yellows was that 5 from last year, I was going to go for the over. Typically, it's the, Bristol night races that are chaotic. The last time this series had been run before last year, way back in the day, we saw 11 yellows, and I think that's kind of, more so what we're on pace for tonight, working under the yellow lap number 99 to 250. So, like we saw early, you kind of break this thing open and get some green flag laps and they can fly by, but a little bit of chaos way to pack is really showing that dividends to kind of qualify up front and stay out of all of that mayhem.
The record for yellows here in this series is 16 back in 2011. I don't think we're going to get there, but what we saw in that first run, if these guys can log some laps, I think we're going to see some green flag racing. There is the 8 of Michael Conti running in position number 3, having an opportunity to take a breath, maybe grab a swig of Coke and get back into it and make sure the tires are all cleaned off and ready for this run here as the field is doubled up.
Doubled up, ready to go. You can see Conti giving the tires a bit of a scrub. That second car in line on the inside as he tries to get some heat into them. I alluded to the track temperature falling down. It's hovering right now at 109 degrees Fahrenheit because it is an afternoon race and it's 86 degrees out. Now the racetrack is hotter than it would be if it was a night race. All of these are factors that determines how hot the track is and therefore how much grip is available to these drivers. The pace car is going to go down and in though. Brad Davies pulls the trigger right away. Look at that, the coordination with his teammate, but a big bobble. Kane Cook spun the tires a ton. He'll fall back behind Ottinger and Novak as we come down the back straightaway. Conti, though, challenging for second.
Let's see if Michael can finally figure out the bottom. We've not seen many people do it. He tries to keep even, but just can't do it. Look at the run the 32 can get off the top, and Michael Conti's going to be forced to get back in the line side by side in the tail end of the top 10. I see Michael Guest and Ryan Lusa involved with this one. Also Justin Bolton, who was caught up in some early trouble and has managed to get his way back up in towards the top 10. But Evan, we talked about the fuel window here at the top of the show at about 140, 150 laps. These guys are only a couple laps away from being able to potentially get there. So do you maybe come down pit road in the relatively near future for fuel and try to, stretch a long run to get to the end? Is tires going to be a limiting factor? Remember what we saw at Homestead with a couple people struggling with the tires, a couple blowouts there late in that one.
Yeah, if you burn all of the tire up, you can see a flat. We've seen that a few times now with some unlucky drivers. Being the culprits of that as we ring around to the Bristol Motor Speedway with a little bit of separation up at the front of the field. Maybe an opportunity here, Tim Terry, to go green flag racing. You can see your leaders have some space. The first side-by-side, 8 till that 77 of Crowder's fighting with the 37 of Challoner. There they are for 11th and 12th position. Challoner gets the spot, and then Crowder now going to blend back up in front of the 54 McCollum to going to hang on tight there. I will say every time I look at Ashton Crowder, he's in a fight. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that race car has got some damage on it. But it is a short track, so I guess you can take some more licks and keep on ticking than you would in some of these other tracks. As the 77 has got a torn up back end, but is running almost top 10.
Yeah, all those are battle scars right now. As you see the 77, there's the 54 in your screen as well. Alex, we talked earlier about U.S. Legend Car graduates. There's another one right there that runs a Legend Car as a side note to this eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. Running on board with Keegan Leahy as you look back from Michael Conti, Logan Clampett, the rest of the field. And for the most part, Evan, by the look of that, it's single file back there.
And that's good. I mean, in Bristol, single file is only so safe because half of the challenge here is not just you versus the other cars, but it is as well you versus the track. But the way that it sits now, single file, doesn't really guarantee anything. Maybe gives these drivers an opportunity, like I mentioned, to kind of run through things here and to get some laps underneath the belt, because I still think with that last restart, we're still outside of the fuel window to go the distance. And maybe that's why these drivers are thinking, hey, this restart right here is not going to be life or death. I need to take it easy. You can't win the race in the first half, but you can certainly lose it. And with all of the drivers that have gotten torn up equipment, the guys up front are enjoying all this space. How about Brad Davies? His advantage, half a second over Keegan Leahy. I think the biggest advantage we've seen so far tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Keegan's starting to open up a bit of an advantage here over Conti as well. So the gap's starting to grow here out at the front of the field. I think everyone's taking sort of a deep breath, and you're not seeing the side-by-side that we were seeing earlier on. It took about 10, 15, even maybe 25 laps for guys to really get single-filed out. Here, pretty much all 40 cars or all 30-some-odd cars we have left running on the racetrack have gotten single-file. Couple moments of side-by-side up and down the field as you see Ray Alfala not looking nearly as stoic as we saw earlier, but in 17th right now, trying to work his way forward on old pals, the 36 of Chris Shearburn he's got out in front of him.
And there's these onboard shots. This is one of my favorite things about these broadcasts, is that we can take the live look at it. Ray Alfala, Ryan Lusa, Michael Conti, all these drivers from home as they compete. If you're tuning into this for the first time, you might be thinking, is it a video game, and how easy and how difficult this is. iRacing is a simulation. These cars, these tracks are scanned to millimeter accuracy. The drivers at home are on controllers. They're on a full wheel pedal set. There's a look at another one of our drivers back in the pack of Zach Novak for Richmond Raceway Sports. Their setups can vary vastly. You can have some more high-end or lower ones, but at the end of the day, you need a wheel and a pedal set to be competing at this level, and these drivers are giving it 110%. Novak up at a P6. He's actually thinking about trying to fight with Nick Ottinger in 5th position, who we talk about the real-world connection, Randy. Of course, Nick Ottinger driving for William Byron Esports, and Willie B's got his own pretty good history with iRacing. He knows a thing or two about it. I know that he was working a lot with Nick Ottinger, using his Coke Series driver as a resource to practice for those last 2 Pro Invitational events. And I'm sure when Nick gets off the racetrack here tonight at Bristol, he'll hop in a session with William Byron and help him get prepped for Sunday's race coming up here.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right about that. All these guys, that all the real, kind of drivers, the likes of Earnhardt Jr. and Kligerman and even Jeff Burton, if you wanted to get into it, and all these guys that have a relationship with the sim drivers in some way, probably have a leg up on everyone else. Now, granted, a lot of these guys were already, super successful sim racers. Anyone who knows the stories of likes of, say, Denny Hamlin will tell you that he was one of the best sim racers around way back before his Cup career. Even Dale Jr. kind of has stated that the reason Denny ended up where he was, and at one point let Denny stay at his house when he had some big interviews way early on in his career. So it's good to see a lot of these, kind of come full circle. A lot of guys go from sim racing, up racing from, early in their career, and now a lot of them are kind of coming back to it. You see they still are very, very strong competitors, and Brad Davies slicing and dicing through the lap traffic.
Your race leader had to go 3 wide with traffic on the outside and traffic on the bottom, so that was a little bit close for comfort. Keegan Leahy is able to follow on through. It is still Davies, Leahy, Conti, Clampett, and Ottinger through the top 5. And as Brad Davies gets set to come back around, we call it Thunder Valley. Let's listen in to the sights and sounds of Bristol Motor Speedway. And as we look back down on the action on the racetrack, you're looking at the 8 of Michael Conti in third, a full running order on the left-hand side of your screen, as we are now past halfway home at Bristol in this 4th race of the 2020 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. 27 cars are on the lead lap, Tim Terry, as we've had to stretch things out now and do a nice little run here. Past halfway means we start counting down to the end of this one. Everybody trying to chase the 88 of Brad Davies.
Your top 3 have a little bit of a gap back to position number 4, and it's getting racy back there from position number 4 on back. Ryan Lusa has just taken a look to the inside of the 55 of Kane Cook as they battle it out. Your top 3 continue to run around here and log laps. 136 being worked on the board this time as they come across the stripe. Keegan Leahy looking to get a little closer to the lead. There is that battle. Ryan Lusa was to the inside of Kane Cook as they battled the lap traffic. They've got back to single file, Evan, but now Ryan Lusa takes another look to the inside. Kane Cook battling for position number 7.
And this was the spot, of course, that we just took the onboard look with a little bit ago, and Gus on the look in this fight for 7th position. So as Novak's been able to get up and through now, he's actually going to get on the outside of Nick Ottinger. Typically, these drivers have been trying to protect the outside line, but when Ottinger got pinned down on the bottom, can't find a spot there. So the 90 gets by. Lusa going to go around as well, and I'll tell you what, he gets up in front of the 55. Kane Cook has been awfully good in that champion Ford Mustang as he peeks down to the bottom. It is going to be, I think, too difficult, though, for him to go for the counter punch. Now on board with Conti in third. He is watching Keegan Leahy close in on his teammate. Guys, we're about to see a 3-way fight for the lead.
Yeah, right now Davies really struggling with the lap traffic. He's having to do it on the bottom, and I mean, we're about 40 pushing 50 laps into this run, and the bottom has just not come in for anybody. It's the top where you want to be. Is Davies going to try here? Remember what happened to Connie and how he lost the lead to Graham Bolin? He tried the bottom, Bolin went up top and was able to make it work. Now the 16 has so much damage that I don't think he's going to be fast enough for anyone to take advantage, but we keep a close eye on this top 3 fight as they navigate lap traffic. If any of them go to the bottom and stay down there or get pinned down there, they are going to get freight trained and fall at least to third, as actually second and third really struggling with getting around the 16 right now. Davies with an opportunity to maybe break away.
Yeah, just as they kind of reeled it back in, they are stuck behind that 16 machine of Chris Overland. So they're both struggling here. I mean, Leahy's been side by side with him for a while. Also a fight further back for, I believe, what is 4th and 5th position. Yeah, there it is. Lusa in the 53 car. Atop Logan Clampett right now, but Zach Novak has chased both of them down, side by side, even behind, with Ottinger trying to get, or hold off Kane Cook, I should say. So there's tons of action. Top 5, top 10 throughout the field. These drivers going at it. Next time through, we'll see 104 laps to go.
We're going to have a 4-car battle for the lead before this thing is all said and done here, Evan. The 53 of Ryan Lusa showing a ton of speed. As you see Shearburn and McCollum battling side by side on your screen with Ashton Crowder, John Gorlinski there as well. Jarl T and the G2 Esports drivers trying to get it to the front of the field as battle middle of the pack right now, just outside the top 10, sitting at 16th as they duel it out. Chris Shearburn taking a look to the inside, that mane and tail number 36, trying to pick up one more position on that Valvoline number 77, and Alex McCollum trying to hold on to a top 20 run.
And it is interesting to kind of see as well, a little bit leaning on each other there with the 36 car as Shearburn thought that he might have been going around in this exchange for 17th and 18th, and he finds a spot in line. It is funny, though, the point it was going to make, as you see the 97 looking low. That is John Gorlinski is ready to bowl these cars mid-pack. Again, the 54 coming off of the wall, almost into him there, and now contact as Tian gives him a shot. 3 wide on the back straightaway. These drivers don't care what spot it's for, beating and banging, and maybe that's why that these cars are in the condition that they were in, because all I was trying to say is back here, everybody's got some sort of damage.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of stacking up here, up and down the field, Evan. We're going to have another fight for your race lead. I think this might be the first time we've seen this in series history with these new kind of team involvement. We might have a couple of junior motorsports cars at the head of the field. Conti has been a couple tenths quicker than Davies every single lap and has reeled that gap down and in, and they're now nose to tail. So a couple junior motorsports teammates, they run first and second, and I think they're going to be fighting for the lead here shortly, unless Conti is good with just sitting and riding for a while and trying to get away from the likes of Leahy and Lusa.
And you can see the 66 car as well, could have been that mix as well. There is, big pockets of cars here and there, and I'm surprised we haven't seen them junk them all, but this battle for the race lead is amongst teammates. So how physical do you get? Bristol Tim is kind of known for the bump and run, but there is a lot of traffic in front of the leaders. Look at the onboard with Conti there. There's one car slow on the apron, and Eric Smith, look at the closing right, nowhere to go. They're going to both have to really cut each other a break here. I think that's where them being teammates is beneficial. But these guys have to be super careful here. There is a lot of damaged cars in front of them fighting with each other and maybe driving a little bit over their heads right now as they try to tiptoe through this and try not to get involved in anything ugly.
Might be a little bit different being teammates, but we did see Michael Conti lose the lead earlier to Graham Bolin through lap traffic as Michael Conti has to kind of get on the binders a little bit as he battles with Brandon Cattell, Brad Davies on the inside, and it almost looked like Michael Conti was trying to do the move that Graham Bolin did on him earlier, take away the lead. You got to tiptoe through this lap traffic, try to get through with your teammate. And oh, by the way, if we look at the back bumper, hello, Ryan Lusa.
He has closed it in. You mentioned that four-way battle for the race lead was going to be on, and since then Leahy has dropped off a bit, but at that time the fourth car in line was the 53 machine. Lusa here in the third spot, started in 10th position, so one of the drivers that had been doing a very good job of moving his way through the field. There they are, first, second, third in line, Davies, Conti, and Lusa. And just on that point of big movers, I did want to give a call to two other drivers who are not quite at this battle for the race lead yet, but are awfully close. Zach Novak started 19th position. He's up to P6. But how about Justin Bolton, the number 10 Ford, started 22nd. He's P5 and is one of the fastest cars on track.
Yeah, and we might have to, give a tip of the cap to Mr. Tim Terry as well for picking a regular short track racer. Garrett Lowe has moved his way from 30th all the way up to 10th. So 21 currently having a really good evening right now as we ride on board with Justin Bolton as we continue to monitor the leaders as well. Brad's still having to deal with lap traffic. Might be on for second. Lusa up the inside of Michael Conti, the number 1 car. Steve Sheehan kind of checking up the 8. They're 3 wide. And he's going to get turned.
The 8 car.
And they're going to stay green.
Somehow he saved it. That car got hooked on the outside with the one machine. Lusa just did not give him room. And Conti looks a little bit worse for wear there. He looks pretty flustered. I thought that was it. The car essentially wrecked, but he was able to recover it. He doesn't fall worse than 3rd position. But what disaster, Tim. We complimented how Davies and Conti could be easy with each other when they hit the traffic because they were teammates. The second they got a foe in there, Lusa squeezed the 8 car, and Conti was in the outside wall, and now it has allowed Lusa to take over second, and he wants to get up to that 88 machine for the race lead.
And if they can clear this lap traffic like they do, Lusa may be able to set his sights on Davies. He's had one of the fastest cars on the racetrack the last 15 laps. He's going to move to the inside of Davies. Ryan Lusa trying to go back-to-back in this series. He's marched all the way from 10th place, and now he'll take the lead. Ryan Lusa at the end of 165 goes to the top. As you see the replay with Michael Conti trying to pass Steve Sheehan. If I'm Conti, I'm kind of concerned maybe with some right front wheel damage. You saw him after this wreck here as he slides through and they maintain forward momentum. He was kind of shaking the wheel back and forth, Evan. I'd be concerned with a little bit of right front damage, but the way he's holding traffic, he's still in position number 3 and holding off Keegan Leahy.
And that incident for the onboard, Randy, was very similar to an incident we saw earlier with 2 cars fighting for position, and instead of staying in line behind the lapped car up top, that car was going through the middle there. But I think it's different if it's a battle for 2nd and 3rd position. Michael Conti could have taken the safe route, stayed behind the traffic, but then he would have handed the spot to Lusa. Instead, he rolled the dice, and it did not pay off for him.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I'm always a big proponent of picking the hills you want to die on. And, you have to ask yourself, if you're Michael Conti, if you drop back to 3rd right there, is it the end of the world? I'm going to go with probably not. And, the situation he's in now, he's got a potentially damaged race car, and he's got a very, very fast Keegan Leahy as we now ride back on board with Ryan Lusa as he continues to work. And look at all the clean track he has in front of him. And this is a scary sight, I think, always, Evan. You have Ryan Lusa who's, hooked up. He's in a rhythm. You can see he's just laser focused right now, and he has a ton of clean track. I think this gap to Davies is going to push a 2.5 seconds by the time he starts hitting lappers again.
We really haven't seen anybody get way out in front. Davies' best advantage was about a 0.5 seconds or so, and it came a little bit earlier on this run. But that last time by, Lusa putting down a 16.140 second lap time, a 1.83 for Davies. So again, about 100th or so of a second better that time around is going to pad the advantage. So the 53 car pulling away, and Lusa gets lucky here as well, Tim. He caught the leaders while they were in traffic, and as soon as he got to the race lead, he had wide open racetrack. So that is a fast Williams Esports Ford. Don't twist the words. However, very good timing and convenient as well for the 53 to allow him to maximize that speed.
And as they battle up here for position number 3, Evan, that lap traffic that we mentioned has hit about position number 8 or so. A couple of drivers in heavy lap traffic right now. These leaders can kind of breathe a sigh of relief right now. Michael Conti and Keegan Leahy, yes, they're battling for position number 3, but they still got some laps to go, about 75 laps remaining in this race at Bristol. But those guys in the middle of the pack, they're still trying to hold their breath. There's a nice shot there of Jarl Tien battling side by side with Ashton Crowder, swapping a little bit of paint down into corner number 1. That's Corey Vincent on your screen as well in the 27 car. And that is a battle about the middle of the pack or so, just outside the top 20 as they continue to work around here. So I see the Bobby Zielinski machine working through as well in the 83 car. So on the move is Randy's pick. There he is on your screen right now, and this is the Hornet's Nest, Evan. It's Michael Guest, Nick Ottinger, you got Chris Shearburn in here, Ray Alfala's in the mix, Christian Chalner. Hang on to your seat because this one is getting pretty wild.
Yeah, if you thought, that separation up at the front of the field meant that things were calming down. No, I mean, mid-pack, these drivers are still going at it. Zielinski has a front row seat and not even a battle, just Steve Sheehan and Chris Overland, 2 lap cars trying to get around each other. And because of that, they're holding up Zielinski in 8th position. So he may have a challenge from Ottinger coming from behind. Here's a fight as Chris Shearburn back to the inside on a Guest, just a step behind them. The 33 and the 36 machines. There's the move by Ottinger now. Held up by traffic as he gets around the one machine and now tries to catch up to Zielinski, who has finally cleared those 2 cars.
Yeah, things starting to get interesting here, Evan, as we're seeing the tires kind of start to go away. You've seen a couple of guys able to kind of make the bottom line work in a couple of moments. We saw that when Ryan. My big question right now, Evan, is when do you pit? I think we're going to see cars down on towards pit road again. I don't think the way the tires are falling off, I don't think you want to stay out there on the same set of rubber to the end of the race from when we went green. That'll be pushing, the edge of the fuel limit, nonetheless the tires. But, just thinking about gas, when do you come down in order to maximize the speed with the undercut and how to minimize your risk with a potential blowing of a tire? Like we said, we've seen that a couple times this season, and people are really, really struggling, dropping a full second pretty much since we went back to green.
And we know it's hot and slick. We've seen them sliding around. So, Tim, this restart came with about 150 laps to go. Your fuel magic said 130 to 140. Any possibility these drivers try to stretch it? Because I feel like if pit stops were on the docket, now is kind of the time to do it halfway through this run to the end now on the longest green flag stretch we've seen.
I feel like you kind of have to. With the way these drivers are battling the middle of the pack, one small mistake is going to bring out a caution, and it's going to throw that fuel strategy out the window. You're going to lose a couple laps coming down on pit road as well, as you see the battle with Keegan Leahy poking that nose to the inside of Michael Conti as they battle for a spot. And don't look now, here comes Garrett Lowe. He's into position number 6, looking to make the top 5 work here, into the top 5 in that number 21 car. But I think you have to wait it out a little bit, because if you come down pit road, you lose a couple laps, the strategy doesn't come to you, and you get a caution. It's not like our 1.5-mile tracks or our 2.5-mile race tracks where you're on the end of the lead lap or you're 1 lap down, you can get a wave around or get a free pass. You're 3 laps down here and the caution flag comes out with less than 75 laps to go. You're pretty much shot for a shot at the win as the 32 of Keegan Leahy. He knows he has to go. Here comes the Wood Brothers Racing number 21, the spin forward, looking for one more spot.
These guys all fighting, all 3 cars all fighting for position. Michael Conti, Garrett Lowe, and the 20, and Keegan Leahy. And the 32 is 3 wide, and they're going to make it work. And it's going to be Keegan Leahy who loses out on that one. Great racing there. But I want to also add on to Tim's point. Tim, you mentioned losing laps on pit road. Remember, we have made this pit road longer. So instead of losing 5 and 6 laps, you might lose 10, as we've nearly quadrupled the overall length of the pit road with the access road in 3 and 4. But no caution's going to come out, and this is going to change everything.
We just mentioned that drivers may be afraid to pit with the possibility of a caution, and it is Ray Alfala in the number 2 Chevrolet. The VRS car got turned around, running into 14th position. You can see talking with the team and maybe some choice words for the driver who kicked that off, which was, I believe, the 37 of Christian Challenger. Sent him for a ride. Ray spun it around. Didn't really get nailed by anybody, so he may be okay. In fact, the 2 cars in front of him and the car behind him look a lot worse, but that is not what the 2 machine wanted to see. And now we can expect the race leaders to come down to the pit lane for the final time to get one more set of tires.
They kind of made me look like a genius there with that caution flag coming out. You don't have to look at the fuel strategy anymore.
You don't have to rub it into.
Well,
unlike my picks, yeah.
I have to throw it out there because the fuel strategy's out the window now. That tire strategy's out the window. You come down now and you get tires and you get fuel on that race car. And if we go 30, 40 laps and a caution flag comes out, yes, and I think there might be another stop. But Here comes Ryan Lusa and the rest of this field down onto pit road. And now it's up to the magic of these crews, maybe make an adjustment to these race cars, maybe make it a little bit snugger, maybe make it a little more free for this final run to the checkered. But Ryan Lusa has looked good, especially on the longer run. We go about 15, 20 laps. He looks a little bit better than the rest of the field, but we'll see what they have here because we could have a couple of short sprints to the finish.
If you're wondering why so many cars are staying out, those that are not down to the pit lane are lapped cars who cannot come to the pit lane until the next time by. So all of your race leaders are in. They are headed by Ryan Lusa, who is into the box. No shock that every time we've been on pit lane tonight, the strategy call has been for 4 tires. So it looks like for Lusa, he's going to get his stuff taken care of, pulls out onto the racetrack. Does he get challenged in the drag race off of pit road? No. Lusa stays P1, and now here's the second look, and I mentioned that it was Ray Alfala at the hands of Challenger. Watch the 2 car in the 37.
Yeah, a little bit of a see the hip check right there between the 2 of them. The 37 gets sort of sent up the racetrack, and I think Christian Challenger not appreciating that too much. You see a good run off the corner and in towards turn 1. Bump, and the Ray Alfala going to quickly go around there, although Challenger nearly set himself around with that, backing himself up into the car behind. But that's just some Bristol racing, I think, Evan. One little sort of side-by-side, and Challenger, I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any disguising it there. I think that was a little bit of frustration with Ray getting into him in 3 and 4, and he sent the 2.
And listen, that's why you love Bristol. In real life for iRacing, somebody does you wrong, and it's so easy to pay it back, and no doubt that was payback from that 37 machine. And I'll tell you what, he did a little bit better than Daniel Suarez did on Sunday at getting some retribution there, because he didn't quite take himself out in that one. It got a little bit squirrely, but I think that was message delivered, and I wonder if anything's going to carry over between he and 4-time. We haven't really had a lot of rivalries, Tim Terry, to talk about at the start of this season. I'm sure Tim feels like, or I'm sure that Ray feels like in that one, Tim, that he kind of got the short end of the stick, and that's the thing with racing is if somebody hits you and you pay them back, nobody ever feels like you're equal.
No, you're going to put that in the memory bank. Race car drivers don't forget, regardless what the incident may be or when it happens. Race car drivers do not forget, and I'm sure Christian Challenger and Ray Alfala will not forget, but we're on the back straight away getting ready to come back to green. You talked about that Pro Invitational iRacing Series coming up. The boss man from JRM might have something to say about that because his drivers are running 2 and 3. He might have to step it up on Sunday.
And for all of the unpredictability, they have been up front inside of the top 5 basically all night long. Let's see if they can hang on to this one. Race start this time with 55 laps to go from Bristol. Lusa is a mile in front at a turn 2, so the fight is going to be between those Junior Motorsports teammates. It is Conti on the inside, Davies up top. The 88 machine got a little bit sideways that time to keep him there. If I'm Conti, I want to get in line before it's filled by Garrett Lowe.
It's already filled. The 8 is not getting back up top, so he's either passing his teammate or he's getting freight trained unless something opens up. He has the opportunity right here, and he's going to take it. The 8 of Michael Conti lucky as we got another caution.
Ranky to behind, yellows breed yellows, and I see smoke in turn 4. You can see as well a slow 36 machine, and I believe that is in and about where the incident happened from. There's a lot of smoke coming off of Chris Shearburn, and it is indeed where the issue was. And we've talked all night, Tim Terry, about drivers trying to get up in line, and I think Shearburn cut it a little bit too close with Bob Bryant, the Letarte Esports and the Kyle Larson Esports entries on a little bit of real estate disagreement, and the 36 car is the one who ended up around this time through. We'll get a second look in just a second.
And there are 2 names that have been involved in sim racing for many, many years. As you take a look at the replay here to see what brought out our caution flag with just over 50 laps to go. Bobby Bryant in the 42 car, and fighting over a little bit of real estate. Shearburn gets sideways in 42, and Bob Bryant gives him a little shot in the shorts to go around. So just like we saw in that last incident, Evan, as you ride on board here with Chris Shearburn, we saw the receipt being given in one corner and then it being repaid per se in the next corner, and we might have saw a little bit of that there as well. Bobby might not have been too happy with the way Chris raced him, and we saw what happened, and it's going to bring out a caution flag, and that's just the way this short track racing thing goes sometimes.
It is, and another thing is, of course, all the damage you're seeing on these cars. That's part of Bristol. It's Bristol, baby, if you will. And every yellow, even though your race leaders, having just pitted, aren't in, there's cars in the back of the field that are coming down to the pit lane because they just want to get those cars fixed up, trying to get as much virtual repairs done as possible. Because there is a lot of torn up virtual sheet metal here so far in this one. But, we saw nearly 100-lap green flag run there, Andy Chan, at the middle of this race. And now that we're inside of the final 50, I would guess that if we could defer to Larry back on this question, the trends would suggest that you get a late yellow at Bristol, you're going to get a lot of late race restarts. I would be very surprised if we run this thing, 48 or however many laps out to the end this next time by when we get back underway.
Well, it's good to know that we're going first and the last name now here, Mr. Evan Pasoko. But yeah, I think you're right. We're about to see some pandemonium. And I have to say, the 8 of Michael Conti, Evan, he's someone who's been sort of on the bad side of luck the last couple seasons. He's had good speed at times, but it's just, he always is either getting caught up in the incident or he's the second fastest car at the road course, and that's what misses him out on getting him to the potential Final Four at Homestead. But this has been the race for Michael Conti that he's wanted for a long time. He's up near the head of the field late. He's had a couple of potential issues that he's kind of gotten bailed out of almost. You think about that half spin he had where he got kind of turned back around, didn't lose a lot of speed, and even on that last restart it looked like the 8 might be getting freight trained, but the gap opens up and a yellow comes out that bails him out. This might be the race that Conti's been waiting for quite a while, and I think he's going to be digging hard inside this final 50-lap window.
Garrett Lowe as well, P4, looking for a second career win. He's on the outside of Conti, so a big mix here of experience and drivers trying to fight up against some of the best in the series. Pace car drops off, 48 laps on the scoring pylon as the green flag flies. Lusa again on the money. He clears. Davies all the way ahead for second. So this time Conti side by side with a friend, instead of a friend, a foe, I should say. It is Garrett Lowe up top. This battle's for third.
Garrett Lowe on the outside, Justin Bolton on the outside as well as Keegan Leahy tries to find a spot in the line. It's filled by the 83 of Bobby Zielinski to the outside line. They're all fighting to get up to that upper groove. Michael Conti to the inside, and there is the ride on board with Michael Guess, a Team Dillon Esports number 33, as he rides just inside the top 10. And there's Keegan Leahy on the inside, trying to find a spot on the outside. He ain't going to find it here.
You can see those cars at the bottom trying to find spots in line as Leahy is unable to. In front, you saw Garrett Lowe win out in that fight for third. So Michael Conti now has fallen to the 4th position after starting this race on the pole. That's about the lowest he's been all night long. That WR1 Sim Chassis Chevy has been oh so good, but it is the ride spin Ford Mustang. Garrett Lowe, I mentioned the one-time race from Michigan last year, trying to get the Wood brothers into victory lane. He's been one of the big movers, started in 30th position, up to third. He is the hard charger so far.
Yeah, it's been fantastic watching the 21 work in this field, and now he's going to set his sights here on Brad Davies if he can, but Michael Conti's keeping him honest. He's locked to the rear bumper of that number 21 Ford Mustang. So the gap is close there, and the gap trying to keep it close with Ryan Lusa is Brad Davies at a couple of tenths, but remember what we saw earlier. If we get a long green flag run, Evan, Ryan Lusa might be able to check out and get away from the 88, but third and fourth starting to reel in your top 2.
And this is exactly what he wants to see, but he's got the challenge from Conti behind it. A caution flag, 210 laps in. Trying to find this one. I don't see a big mess anywhere on the racetrack as the pace truck speeds back out to catch up, but somebody back there in the pack had some issues, and we'll slow him down and re-rack him and stack him.
That caution flag will come out, that long run that Randy mentioned that Ryan Lusa might need to pull away from this pack has gone to the wayside one more time with 40 laps remaining here at Bristol, but held a pretty good wheel up there with Brad Davies to come to that caution flag. Great little battle. Zach Novak in the 90 was doing work trying to pick up a couple of positions, but fell back to position number 7 behind Bobby Zielinski. Is that Keegan Leahy down on pit road in the 32 car inside the top 10 and down on pit road to get adjustments made to the race car with 40 laps to go? That's going to be a long road to hoe to get back up to the front.
Yeah, an interesting call. You mentioned that if we got a yellow with 10 to go or so, drivers may want the fuel, or the fresh tires as opposed to the fuel. but it comes down to, how much traffic would you then have to get back around. I believe the caution flag was for Jeremy Allen, and we talk about, the challenges with sim racing, and I'm not sure what happened with him here. He was running in 13th position and basically just had to pull that race car off and get out of the sim. And unfortunately, when he came to a stop on the apron, I believe that is what triggered the caution flag. Jeremy Allen is no longer in this iRacing session. He had to go. So, it could be an equipment issue, something wrong with his computer. There's all those different factors, which, you don't have to deal with in a real race car, but in sim racing are unique things that can only happen here. So whatever the issue was, it takes Jeremy Allen out of a very good running spot.
Well, I mean, there's still issues, of course, that happen in real race cars, Evan. You could have motor trouble, you could have drivetrain issues, have shock problems, and all sorts of things that could happen. So it's all kind of in line with what you might see in motorsports, and to a certain extent, things that might be out of your control. But man, I am really perplexed by this call from the 32 of Keegan Leahy. We saw last time we came to this racetrack, I think Keegan, he's one of the quickest cars, but I think he threw away a good performance potentially away with pit strategy, and I fear that he might be doing the same thing again. Track position is king at Bristol. We've seen how hard it can be at times to get around people. Yeah, new tires are nice. Yeah, they're going to be quick. There's a good chunk of laps on the board, a little bit under 40, 37 laps to go when we get to start finish. Of course, it's going to be 36, 35 when we eventually get back to green. But man, I don't understand the logic at Bristol of all places, throwing away a top 5 running position spot when you're one of the quickest cars on the racetrack and burying yourself deep. Knowing my luck, though, I'm about to eat my words when he ends up winning this race.
Yeah, he's 15th position, which means that there's 14 cars in front of him who stayed out. So is that, 15-lap difference on tires, having to pit it at about, earlier than lap 200 and working 214 right now, is that really going to be enough of a benefit to get you around that much traffic? We'll find out. We get set to try it again. Pace car off it in. This time, the magic number with 214 laps down is 36 laps to go. Lusa has been oh so good on the race starts, and he nailed another one. Green flag in the air. Here comes Garrett Lowe, the 21 car, trying to challenge Davies for second. He's got him at a turn 2.
He's going to be able to clear him off of corner number 2 and get up in front of him down into 3. Garrett Lowe moves to position number 2, and now the battle between the JRM teammate behind and then Justin Bolton going to the inside of Bobby Zielinski. Michael Guest involved in the battle as well, and you're right on board with the number 8 of Michael Conti. There's that battle for position number 2, and keep an eye on that battle in behind. Michael Guest wants a piece of this. The 33 is coming to the front.
The tandem machine is stuck at the inside, so he can't really do anything. Bolted one of those big movers up 15 spots, but I think Michael Guest has got his number here. Ottinger squeezing high in the Logitech G Chevy, so he'll get there also. And again, now the 10 is just doing everything he can to find the spot on line. On board with Ottinger, you're looking at a torn-up rear bumper of Michael Guest in a P6. We're all single file from the 33 car on up, still with just Bolton in line. Now there's the visor cam.
Okay, you see that 25 car trying to make anything work, but not a lot of it. You see one car right up against the outside wall, out of the windshield. That's the 88 of Brad Davies, who's trying to keep the 21 of Garrett Lowe honest. But right now, it's the 53 Mustang of Ryan Lusa starting to stretch the gap. 2.5 tenths was the gap last time around the racetrack. And he's like, once again, Evan, starting to make that bottom line work on completely clear track. You see that 53 car all the way up against the apron on exit. No one else is venturing that low. That said, he makes a little bit of a mistake, so Lowe able to bring in a little bit of speed.
And one of the biggest challenges your race leaders have been dealing with today when we've been green is the traffic. Having just gone back underway, there is a fair bit of clear racetrack ahead. Race leader Ryan Lusa, you're looking off of the bumper of his Williams Esports Ford. You can see Lowe, Davies, they are fighting for second and third, and that would be perfect for the 53. The more they scrap behind, the further he can get away from them. Let's see how patient Davies is. Again, it's him and his teammate Conti, third and fourth, all over the back end of that 21 machine alone.
They might be content to ride here for at least a few laps. We're coming down to 25 laps to go here in just a few circuits, but we've seen some caution flags late in this race, so maybe they are anticipating at least one more. You saw on that look back from Ryan Lewis's bumper, The top 10 or so, Evan, are calm. Then you get to about 12th, 15th or so, and then it starts to get a little bit hectic with those drivers like Keegan Leahy trying to get back towards the front of the field. But that battle for second continues to intensify. Brad Davies keeping him honest. Caution is out.
Caution flag flies. We slow him down again. So the caution flags late in this race continue. And again, trying to identify where the issue comes from, because, Randy, most of the wrecks that had been very obvious. I mean, you just kind of glanced at the back of the pack, and it is a huge mess. In this case, they have been cleaning themselves up pretty quickly, hearing that it may have been the 14 machine of Brandon Cattell, and it was. And this is not what the race leaders want to see. Cattell fighting with Santiago, or in fact, fighting with Schoenberg way back in 28th and 29th position, got together. Here's the replay. They are way at the back and not overdriving on anybody's part. You can see Schoenberg push up a little bit, but just the slightest bit of contact sent Cattell around and into the outside wall, and with the traffic coming from behind is what triggers that yellow flag. So again, we pause, and that little bit of an advantage that Lusa had been working on once again evaporates.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think you're right about that incident as well. You saw the 79 come off the bottom a bit, but the 14 came off the top a bit. I think that's just two cars, going for the same bit of real estate at the same time. To be honest, you see the 18 going to get another wave around here. Graham Bolin, who, he's definitely really, really disappointed with the way this has gone. I will say, though, Evan, with all the cautions that we've had and all the drama, the 18 of Graham Bolin has now lucky dogged his way onto the lead lap. So the 18 car back potentially, in a position where he can gain some spots if there's some pandemonium. Also talking about some other drivers that have been relevant today. Remember, we just saw Keegan Leahy come down pit road, and I was questioning the strategy. We just took 10 laps off the board, and he just had some big problems. Did the 32, not making up any spots. Also, remember the 2 and the 37, they had a run in earlier. Take a look where they are on the racetrack. They're going to be restarting mighty near each other this time, and it was the 2 who got sent around last time they were together.
Yeah, remember that point that I made, how nobody ever feels like it's equal. When Christian Challoner sent Ray Alfala, he felt like that was the end of it. You hit me, I hit you. But if I'm Ray Alfala, I'm thinking, listen, man, I just moved you up and out of the way. You dumped me, so I owe you. And again, that's the beauty of racing rivalries, is nobody ever feels like it's to be decided. So our cameras are going to be up front there with race leader Ryan Lusa, as well with Michael Conti on board with him again as he rides in 4th position. But just keep a half eye back in the pack. I feel like there may still be some fireworks in store as this restart will come inside of the final 20 laps.
If you're a guy like Ray Alfala, you've been involved in the series for so many years, you've been involved in sim racing, do you cash the check now knowing that he's right there, or do you wait and maybe put that in the memory bank for a little bit later, because Christian Challoner might be thinking that it's coming in the way of payback? And oh, by the way, those 2 drivers that got together on that caution flag, aren't they Clint Boyer Racing teammates? So maybe there's something to do there, and maybe Clint's going to have a little chat with them after this race at Bristol. But the lights appear to be off on the iRacing pace truck, and Ryan Lusa, Garrett Lowe up in front, 2 drivers with short track backgrounds getting ready to duel it out for a 20-lap dash to the finish. And then 2 teammates right in behind them with Bobby Zielinski. And don't count out Michael Guest. Guest was in the top 5 here last year at Bristol. I think he's itching for one more top 5.
Talking about run-ins as well, Clint Boyer has had a handful of those in his career, so he knows all and well what his drivers may be feeling behind the wheel. We're going to go on aboard Ray Alfala back in the pack. Let's watch this restart. We get set to take 20 laps to go from Bristol. Alfala mid-pack. Here's his view.
You see him trying to work his way forward. There's that 37, and you see Ray not giving him much room whatsoever. They come off of turn 2 with Christian Challoner. They stay side by side.
Caution flag to slow him down. You can see he checks up. The incident not in front of him, though, because all those cars still facing the right direction. So it had to have been an incident behind. It was around on the front straightaway, the 99 of Logan Clampett, the spinner, after actually it started even further up the road. A rough night for the Jim Beaver Esports duo. It was Michael Guerrilla this time who had some help. Second time the car's gone around off of the nose of Colin Keister. So when he got turned, then Clampett went around. That was kind of one of those chain reaction incidents back in the pack. And just as quickly as we went back racing, we slow him down.
Yeah, Colin Keister's had a tough sled here this evening in that number 17 car. They fasten all forward as we take a look at the replay here to see what brought out the caution with less than 20 laps remaining. They're 3 wide already through that. They get back to 2 wide. Guerrilla up the racetrack, and Colin really nowhere to go. And Logan Clampitt gets spun in from behind with those drivers trying to avoid and trying to check up. And there's not a whole lot of time to react here coming out of these high banks at Bristol, but caution flag flies. We're going to re-rack them and restack them one more time as we work lap 234.
As good of an opportunity as any to remind you that just like in NASCAR Cup Series action, we can go to Coca-Cola overtime. If we do get a yellow inside of those final 5 laps or so, we will extend past our 250-lap scheduled distance and get a couple of cracks at some green-white-checkered finishes to see if this race may finish under a green flag condition. Again, that is only if necessary. But, you know, what we're learning off of these restarts is that I think it's going to be very difficult, Randy, for somebody to get Lusa. He's on the bottom. He gets the jump. He gets in front of Lowe. So the real battles up front are second and third. In this case, Michael Conti in P3. Can that third-placed car follow the leader through, get up on the inside of the car who's on the outside of the front row in second, and make a pass? Garrett Lowe has been very good on these restarts tonight. If he can hold Conti off, I think that's a big win. And then all of a sudden, you blink your eyes, we're inside at 10 laps to go. He may have to use the chrome horn to get around Lusa, who has been picture perfect since he went to the top spot.
Yeah, I mean, it might have to be a bump and run here from the likes of Garrett Lowe or Michael Conti. I don't think it's so. I do disagree, Evan. I don't think it's going to be the 8 who has to be good on the restart here, because I think if he starts fighting with Garrett Lowe, I think they're just going to let Ryan Lusa run away. It's all on Garrett Lowe right here to get the good restart and keep side by side with Lusa and not just let him get clear track.
I totally agree with that, and, you know, there's more factors in this. I mean, Zelensky, Davies, we saw Kane Cook a little bit earlier have a huge tire spin. If that happens again to anybody near the front, that could check up a whole inside or outside line, and that could easily cost you 4 or 5 spots as, you know, whatever line that you're in kind of blows on by. There is an advantage to starting on the outside because, of course, when we get single file, that's where everybody wants to run. They fight to find a spot in line up on the outside. But on the restart, at least, with Lusa controlling it from the bottom, it is not the worst place to be. But once you either make your moves or are unable to, you need to get in line ASAP. We'll try it again as the lights are out on the iRacing official pace truck. This restart coming with 13 laps to go from Bristol. Ryan Lusa leading, looking for a second win in a row with Garrett Lowe, Michael Conti, Bobby Zelensky, and Brad Davies inside of the top 5. The pace cars off and in, right foot down and through the gears. Green flag, and Garrett Lowe is right on his heels to turn 1.
Michael Guest didn't go on that restart. They all checked up in behind. Your top 4 get single file. And here comes Zach Novak to the inside of Brad Davies. Davies is able to get up to the outside. That's your first side-by-side battle within the top 5. Caution is out.
Caution behind. Race leaders held together. There is a big check up on the front straightaway, and it is issues with the 97 of John Gorlinski. Gorlinski and Schoenberg, 2 of the veterans of sim racing competition, got together, and it was Schoenberg sending the 97 machine around almost in the same spot at which we saw he make contact a little bit earlier on in this race, talking about the awkward moment when you get into your teammate. Almost same spot on track that the 79 pushed up on the 97. Just those 2 in the back, and a yellow will take another chunk of 4 or 5 laps out of this race.
Yeah, that's a lapped car getting into the back of a lead lap car, so John Gorlinski's not going to be too happy about that. And we're going to take a replay of it here and, you know, just watch here from these couple of cars as they work down the back straightaway. Here it comes the 79 in towards 3 and 4, and around goes the 97. So yeah, that's Gorlinski's not going to be happy about that. And the thing that's interesting to me, Evan, all these incidents we've been getting, they've been lead lap cars that have been getting themselves into problems. It's not lappers, getting into incidents. It's been the lead lap cars getting sent around or getting into one another. And one driver I keep mentioning, because we saw him be dominant earlier and he went down like 6 or 7 or 8 laps. Graham Bolin, I mentioned a little bit ago, got back up to the lead lap. He's now running inside of the top 20 with that heavily damaged race car due to all of this pandemonium and all the drivers in front of him getting taxed. We're about to come inside of 10 laps to go here once we come across start finish. But man, this has been a bit of a nightmare final run with a lot of fireworks to bring towards the checkers.
And that goes to show you, even if you have problems early, if other drivers do late and you kind of stick through, you could recover. And listen, I think Bolin would have been expected a much better result than what was right now P18 when he started this race. But after all that's been said and done, maybe 18th ain't all that bad, Tim. I know it's a lot better than Nathan Lyons' night has been, as my driver is going to give me a hearty serving of maybe 2 points in fantasy down in 39th position. So sometimes you get in a wreck early, you can bounce back. Sometimes you can't. It's part of the unpredictability of Bristol and short track racing.
And it's not over yet. We're going to come to 8 laps to go this time by, and a lot could happen. But we talked about trends at the start of the night, looking for a first-time winner in this series, potentially at Bristol. You got to look back to Michael Guest right now, running in position number 7, Justin Bolton, Alex McCollum back there inside the top 10, but they've got a little ways to go to get up there. That Bush delivery number 10, we talked about him a little bit earlier. Want to say hello to the boys at SHR Radio Podcast. I know Nook and the boys watch us every Tuesday night, so say hello to them. I know they're cheering on those guys, but if we're looking for a first-time winner in this series, Evan, they've got to start digging, and they've got a long way to go in just 7 laps as we're doubled up.
We talked about the history of seeing those first-time winners come here at Bristol Motor Speedway, but there is a lot of experience at the front of the field. Not that Garrett Lowe is inexperienced, but kind of really had to step up this year, taking over the 21 machine for the Wood brothers from Ray Alfala as he made the switch to Team VRS. And he's racing around a champion in Lusa, a champion in Conti, one of the best drivers without one in Bobby Zelensky, Zach Novak, defending series champion at P5, Brad Davies, one of the all-time veterans. So he's kind of an inexperienced sandwich up there as the underdog, if you will. Can he pull this one out, or will it be Ryan Lusa, who has not put a foot wrong since he got to the race lead, as he has to go through the motions at least one more time. It'll be 6 laps to go from Bristol Motor Speedway on the iRacing Esports Network. The Williams Esports Ford dictates the start. He goes early. Green flag flies. He stays P1, and it is Garrett Lowe hanging on to second.
That's not what you like to see if you're Garrett Lowe. You wanted to see that be much, much closer to what it ends up being. But he's able to reel in the 55 a little bit. Down the back straightaway, side by side for third on back. Zach Novak trying to get underneath Michael Conti. He's got a nose. That damage number 90 is bad fast. He's trying to make it work, but we know the top line's been strong all day, and Michael's going to hold on at least for the moment. This time off of 4, going to be 4 laps to go.
And Novak has been so fast that a caution flag. That is going to put us over the limit. We may have to go to overtime, as it is an incident on the back straightaway with the number 4 machine of Santiago Tires. Just 3 wide, contact with Cattell and Corey Vincent. That is a single car spin that puts us on pause. We'll get a second look in just a few moments. But again, the incident happening not at the front of the field, but at the back. Here's your second look. It's all going to happen at a turn number 2. Tira is damaged. He's had a rough night. So has Cattell, and they just kind of get squeezed 3 wide there. Cattell a little bit lower than I think the 4 was banking on to yield to the car high. Tagged him, ended up in the fence. That's how you get a caution. And Pacey now at 2:48. I don't think this ends in regulation.
Yeah, and those are drivers that are 2 and 3 laps down, respectively, battling at the back of the field. Yes, they have drivers on the same lap as them, so there are points to be made. And Evan, we talked off the top of the show about points. Yeah, we're only 4 races in, but we're about a quarter pole on the regular season after we leave the Bristol Motor Speedway, so you never know what this race could mean in the grand scheme of things. As you ride on board with Zach Novak, he was grinding it out on the inside, trying to pick up a couple of positions. He'll start on the outside line here. This is going to be key for Garrett Lowe. He's seen where Ryan Lusa has gone before. He's kind of put that in the memory bank. He knows where that number 53 restarts. We'll see if he can get a decent start here. There's Michael Conti. He's kind of loose, looks relaxed, talking to his crew, seeing what they can do maybe to plan something on this, what could be final restart of the event, as you've got Ryan Lusa right ahead of him. We'll see if he's learned anything on these last couple of cautions and restarts.
But I actually think this yellow helps Novak. I think he needed one late here to just group everybody else up, but he's had rotten luck despite how fast he's been. He's been stuck on the bottom. This time he's up on the outside, and Randy, you're the one that noted that's kind of the line that everybody works in. He could easily end up third here if Conti gets left in the dust like he did the last time through and lose a low stay 1-2. He could find himself at a spot where if your race leaders start to get into it, one of those cars, third on back, could be there to kind of pick up the pieces and maybe steal this thing.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, it's the cars on the bottom that have to be picture perfect. Now, obviously, Lusa has the advantage. He can kind of dictate when he goes, Evan, and he can kind of run. I've said this a little bit earlier. I brought some of the dirt terminology in, and I'll do it again. He can kind of run the slider line going into turn one when he gets green, and he kind of shorten the entry and sort of the route he takes. So you just dive to the inside and immediately jump up top, and you're taking that route, he can usually get clear of the 21. But you're absolutely right. If one of those drivers makes a mistake, if Michael Conti makes an error, even the likes of Ryan Lusa, the likes of Garrett Lowe, the likes of Zach Novak, they're going to be there to pounce as we get ready for green-white-checkered attempt number 1.
It is going to be Ryan Lusa in front, chased by Garrett Lowe, Conti, Novak, Zelensky, your top 5. But who would have ever thought that a Bristol race would end any way other than a green-white-checkered? It is attempt number 1 of 3 as the pace truck dives down it in for Ryan Lusa. Green flag in the air, 2 laps to go.
And look at that jump to the outside. Garrett Lowe maintains second. Novak going to try to take third. Gets that launch off of the corner. Side by side, little contact. They'll come by this time and take the white flag. Lowe digging.
Got to get to the line for it to be official. There it is. White flag in the air. Final time from Bristol. Novak takes third from Conti. The challenge from Garrett Lowe going to look to the bottom. It is not going to be enough. And Ryan Lusa is going to go back to back. He steals the win at Thunder Valley.
What a run there to the finish. Zach Novak, like we talked about, Michael Conti not getting a great restart, not able to get to the top, and Zach Novak will put himself on the podium because of it. But Ryan Lusa, talk about a run from him. He looks mighty calm for someone who's gone back-to-back in this series, and especially doing it here at Bristol on the tail end of a green-white-checkered. Ryan Lusa really was, at least in the second half of the race, the best car of the night, and no one could touch him since that 53 got to the lead.
Ryan Lusa is a cool customer. In his debut season back in 2017, he won 2 of the first 3 races. This is a guy that expects to win, and he's now done it back-to-back as he celebrates on the front straightaway, burning it down at Bristol Motor Speedway. This winning moment is brought to you by Coca-Cola, the official fan refreshment of eNASCAR. And I had mentioned a fun stat last time out, but I can update it now. In all 4 seasons in which Ryan Lusa has competed in this eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, Tim, he has won 2 of the first 4 races.
And he joins a list of 3 others that have won here. We've never had a repeat winner at Bristol, but there's been 2 champions of this series that have won here at Bristol. Obviously, Ryan Lusa, a former champion of this series, and Richard Towler, the inaugural champion back in 2010. Pretty darn good company, if you ask me. There's results on your screen, led up by that 53.
It is his 14th career win in this series, tying Nick Ottinger for second all-time. Lusa comes out on top at Bristol, atop Garrett Lowe, Zach Novak, Michael Conti, and Bobby Zelensky. We'll do our best to get comment from those drivers in just a moment, but also good results for the likes of Davies, who had been up front all night. Alex McCollum in 7th, with Michael Guest, Kane Cook, Justin Bolton through P10.
And we look down at the drivers outside of the top 10. Bob Bryant, Keegan Leahy, that strategy not paying off. Didn't like to see that. That's, again, Keegan just not getting the strategy right. We've seen that several times from the 32, 113th, and you have the likes of Nichols and Alfala, 14th and 15th. Challoner in the 16th spot, and then you look at Bolin, Sheehan, Busa, and then Keister, some of the drivers that got into some trouble throughout this evening as we now look down below the top 20.
The last drivers in the lead lap, Logan Clampett, Michael Guerrilla, Chris Shearburn, Jarl Teen, and Phil Diaz. And then you got Brian Schoenberg, a 26th place first driver, 1 lap down, Casey Kerwin, John Gorlinski, Ashton Crowder, and Brandon Cattell, your top 30.
And then on the back half of the sheet, drivers who were out of this race by the time the checkered flag flew, you're talking about multiple laps down and drivers who were kind of limping it to the finish if they even got there. The likes of Malik Gray, Jimmy Millis, Chris Overland, and Santiago Tires. Corey Vincent also, I think, was still on track P35 to the cars in the garage. Dylan Duvall, Jeremy Allen, Eric Smith, Nathan Lyon, and Blake Reynolds. Tough night for some of those drivers, many of which had actually started, top 10, top 20, but just could not get the result when it was all said and done. But it is Ryan Lusa who celebrates that I mentioned that milestone, Tim, as somebody who has seen these veterans race for so many years. 14th win on Ryan Lusa's career, tying him with Nick Ottinger for second all-time, both of them trailing just the four-time champion in Ray Alfala. But for the way that it has played out, an incredible run. And talking about some of these top finishers, Garrett Lowe finished in second spot. Tim, I believe you've got him.
Yeah, we'll try to chat with Garrett Lowe, driver the number 21. And Garrett, coming from the back of the field up to the front, what else did you need on those last couple of restarts to get up and make that move on Ryan Lusa?
I just needed a little bit more drive off out of the corner there on short run there. We had on the long run as we passed, I don't know how many cars, probably 29, maybe 30. Just absolute rocket ship of a car. I got to thank all my guys. Wood Brothers Racing, of course. Spin, new paint scheme on the car this week, so really excited about that. Glad to have them on board. But man, Jared Crawford, his whole guys on the FSR team, man, that thing was a rocket. I've never driven anything that fast in my life, and it certainly showed on the long run there. And we were able to track him down. Just came up a little bit short, but it was close enough, and we'll take second.
You talk about the short track background as well. You have the Bandolero door behind you. You race legend cars. Did that come into play at all here tonight with a little bit of that experience keying in?
It did a little bit, especially in the traffic we had to deal with tonight. There's a lot of lap cars that are just a little bit off the pace, but there were some that were also faster on newer tires. So it was a little bit kind of give and take, and you had to know when to back off and just, let them go. Or sometimes you got to use the bumper a little bit. So that went well. Luckily, we had a good race tonight. So thanks for all the fans for tuning in. I hope they enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll be back next 2 weeks at Richmond. So that ought to be fun.
Well, there you go. There's Garrett Lowe finishing in position number 2. And I believe, Evan, you've caught up with our winner here this evening, another guy with a little short track experience, Ryan Lusa.
We said it at the top of the broadcast, 3 races, 3 different winners, no more, because Ryan Lusa's gone back-to-back. It took home the checkered flag 2 weeks ago when we were out at Homestead, and now, Ryan, you've done it at Bristol Motor Speedway. Congratulations on the win, and tell us about this race. You guys started at P10, had to work real hard to get up to the race lead, but once you did, you never looked back.
We just had an amazing long-run car. I had a pit stop malfunction on the first pit stop after we got to third on the first run, and I was pretty upset. But we got another long run, and we came flying through the field after about 30 laps. Garrett was really, really fast as well. I think we pretty much had the field covered on the long run there, and that really showed. But thanks to all the guys at FSR for the hard work. This is probably the best car I've ever had in a race, like as far as like dominance is concerned. So big hat off to Justin Bolton and Jared Crawford. And everyone else, of course.
Of course, it always helps when you get that fast car out at the racetrack, Ryan, but at a track like Bristol as well, where there's so much unpredictability, even that 53 machine doesn't come home without a couple of battle wounds on it. What was it like making sure, and knowing that you had a really good race car, keeping it in one piece so that you could get this win?
We just wanted to keep track position. That's all it was about. I mean, I guess Garrett came flying through like 25th or whatever, so it's not all about track position, but that's the safest thing. There's a ton of carnage at Bristol. Just trying to stay up front and be safe. I had one really, really close call with Conti. I want to apologize to him. I didn't think we were 3 wide, and luckily that didn't end either of our nights. So thanks to him for keeping it together there, I guess.
Well, the 2 wins in the opening to 4 weeks is always good. I mentioned that is the time that you've done it all the time. So congratulations, as Ryan Lusa is it victory related once more. Zach Novak, a P3. Randy Cheneth, you're with the defending champ.
Yeah, I got Zach here. Zach, what a run for you. You started it down low, and I knew you weren't super confident with the race car coming to this one, but you kind of run your way through the field to get yourself up to third. How was that, number 90?
We were pretty good, actually. Didn't qualify very well. Didn't really have that good of a trimmed out car, so to speak, but the race car was really good. I knew we had about top 10 speed. Struggled there on the long run a little bit. Just couldn't really pass in the middle and was getting held up by lap cars that were running the top there. So really, really happy to finish P3 though. We really needed that run, and Really good car. Just glad we could finally execute.
Now you run there with the Richmond Raceway Esports number 90. Richmond is up next. Anything special planned?
Not sure yet. We haven't talked about anything, but I'm historically not that great at Richmond, so it'd be really cool to maybe go and get a win or at least another top 3 there.
We look forward to headed out to Richmond Raceway. Big thanks to Ryan Lusa, Garrett Loaf, and as well Zach Novak for second and third for chatting with us. And very fitting that we ended on that note because, Randy, it is the virtual Richmond Raceway next time out, 2 Tuesdays' time on April the 14th. And I'll tell you what, if you're a fan of the racing you saw tonight, we got Bristol, followed now by Richmond and Dover, short track week, so you could say, on iRacing as we get set to head out to Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one here as we keep the short tracks rolling and get deeper into this championship. A lot of players kind of coming into this, and it's great to see this championship form up.
And Tim Terry, for that one coming number 5 in this 2020 campaign, we've kind of alluded to it here this evening. It may still feel early on in the season. Drivers may like to think, well, it's early on, the points aren't that big of a deal. But it is crunch time as this series gets to run down. So, we're almost, as you mentioned now, headed around 5, basically quarter of the way through the season, a third of the way through the regular season. If you're outside of the top 20, if you have hopes of funding for the championship and you're outside of the top 8, it's time to step up. And I know Richmond will be a tough racetrack to figure it out because a lot of those same short track elements that we saw here tonight going to be in play in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, you look at points, guys like Ashton Crowder, Keegan Leahy didn't have the best of nights. Bobby Zelensky, Garrett Lowe had decent runs, and they're going to try to carry that momentum into Richmond. I said off the top of the show that I'm a short track guy. I love Bristol Motor Speedway, but I love Richmond as well, and we got Dover coming up on the schedule as well after that. If you love short track racing, if you love this kind of racing, we kind of lean into each other. The next couple of weeks here in this eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series are for you. I can't wait to get to Virginia.
If you've loved what you've been seeing as well, then let's take a look back at our Coca-Cola move of the race from this evening, as it was Ryan Lusa headed to victory lane from the Bristol Motor Speedway. Let's take a look now at that Coca-Cola move of the race, the deciding moment in this one. And there you see him on the inside of the 88 machine of Brad Davies, making the pass for what would become the race win. Took that spot away, never looked back, and cashed in a second straight win in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. And on that mention of loving what you're seeing on track, if you love racing and if you may be new to this whole iRacing thing and tuning in with us, you can get involved by logging on to iRacing.com and be a part of the excitement. 50% off all new memberships, all the information and more on how to start your iRacing career going to be found at iRacing.com. But until next time, that's it for us here tonight from Bristol as round number 4 falls into our rear view mirror. On behalf of our entire team at iRacing and NASCAR and for the broadcast crew tonight, for myself, Evan Pisoko, for Tim Terry and Randy Channa, thanks for tuning in. And congrats to Ryan Lusa. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time, Tuesday, April the 14th, in the virtual Richmond Raceway. That race and every race of the 2020 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series going to be found right here on the iRacing Esports Network. Until then, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time. Good night.